Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This is our City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 18th, 6 p.m. We'll call the meeting to order, and if you would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for Pastor Pat Sheehan from the Family Worship Center for invocation. Join with me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for Mayor Hammond, councilpersons Gregory, Bosch, Strong, and Beal. Fill them, Lord, with the spirit of wisdom and revelation and the knowledge of Christ for every decision before them tonight. Lord, bless and be with our police and emergency service personnel who bravely serve and protect us all. Lord, give your grace to our city manager and to all those in City Hall whose labor benefits all of us who live in Paso Robles. Supply them with all they need to care for our city. Lord, we ask your continued blessing upon Paso Robles and its outlying areas. And just want to remember former council member Lee Swanson. We ask that you bless his family and friends and bring the comfort of the Holy Spirit to them in their time of loss. We ask this all in the glorious name of your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Melissa, would you call roll call, please?
Councilmember Bausch?
Here.
Councilmember Beal? Here. Councilmember Gregory?
Here.
Councilmember Strong?
Here.
Mayor Hammond?
Here. And we'll do staff introductions, beginning on my right. Melissa?
Melissa Martin, City Clerk, joined by Mary Sponholz, Deputy City Clerk.
Warren Frace, Community Development Director.
Leslie Frazier, Public Works Director. Community Services Director. Linda Pasha, Recreation Services Manager. Capital Gatti, Finance Manager. Kate Ganser, Assistant Manager. Karen Jackson, IT.
Mayor, Commander, Police Department. Amy Norwood, Chief.
Ashley Sanders, Home Services Manager.
Brian Cornell, Administrative Services Directors.
Chris Hewitt, City Manager.
Elizabeth Hall, City Attorney.
Thank you. I'm going to do a little impromptu presentation. If I can have Fire Chief Jonathan Stornetta come on up, please. Yeah, no, not yet, but yeah, soon. So I got this. I missed the ribbon cutting for quite an event the other day. I'd like for you to let everybody know what you did out there at the training center, and then also if you want to present this to us. This
Sure.
is something.
Yeah. First of all, it's not just me. I mean, my partner across the hall, Chief Nord, and then the team from the police and fire, they were the true people behind the scenes that did all the work. We just came up with the idea and they implemented. So
Yep.
all the thanks goes to the team.
Come on, Damien. You need to get up here too. Then. Yeah, there are two shields here, isn't
Yes,
there?
there
Yeah, exactly.
is.
Yeah. Being it's your training tool, I thought maybe Damien, yeah, you want to say something about? Well, again, this reads, just to let everybody know, El Paso de Robles Public Safety Center training presented to in appreciation to the Paso Robles City Council in recognition of your dedication to public service, safety, and the lasting investment in those who protect, serve our community. Together, we build a safer, stronger, and more resilient future. Thank you to both departments for doing that. And again, you want to say something about the actual?
Well, I mean, I just want to say thank you to all of our council members who have always been supportive of public safety, as well as the community, because this wouldn't be possible without Measure J20 and Congressman Panetta, who was present, who got us $500,000 to go towards it. That facility was $1.8 million, and all of it except for the $500,000 was all from J20.
And I know you can do smoke training, but does it do bullet type?
They've already broken a couple of doors,
Oh
so
my God.
yes, they've been in there.
You know, typically the cops are the ones that break the windows when they shouldn't be doing that.
That's why we don't have glass in there. Yes.
Okay, again,
So-
I just want to recognize you both. Thank you guys for doing what you've done, and it's going to be a great tool.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, getting back on the regular scheduled program here, we have presentations, homeless services, quarterly report, and point-in-time count. Ashley Hernandez.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ashley Hernandez, Homeless Services Manager, and I'm going to keep tonight's quarterly Homeless Services update brief to ensure we have plenty of time for our guest presentation on the latest point-in-time results. Before we begin, I want to thank Council for identifying housing and homelessness as one of the city's 6 strategic goals for fiscal year 2026 through 2028. Including this work in the strategic work plan gives staff clear direction and importantly creates a framework for accountability and measuring our progress. Tonight's update is organized around the 4 objectives Council established under Goal 3 and highlights some of the work already underway. The first objective is developing a coordinated homelessness communication and outreach framework. That includes our community's resource guide, the city's homeless services webpage, quarterly council updates like this one tonight, and our city's impact and homelessness dashboard. Our goal is twofold. We want someone who needs help to understand where to go and how to access services, but we also want residents and businesses to understand what the city is doing, who is responsible for what, and what our data is telling us. So transparency is a very important part of this work, and we're continuing to build that into how we communicate with the community. Today, you will see next to our agenda, I have some flyers, and they're also here online. These are some of the outreach materials the city provides to community members looking for information or assistance. We've developed resources that answer 2 questions we hear frequently. The first is, I need help, where do I go? And the second is, I'm seeing something in the community, who do I call? The intent is to make navigating what can be a complicated system much easier for everyone, and they are available, like I said, at the table where the agendas are for the public tonight. Another major component of the objective is our public dashboard. For the 9-month period since our dashboard has started, from October 1st through June 30th, 111 people exited ECHO's 90-day program directly into permanent housing. So I just want to take a moment for that. It's really important that people get access to that, and it's been a pleasure to work with ECHO and see the success stories that happen through there. Our community action team is out in the street doing outreach. They've completed 142 outreach contacts, and we have disposed of 168,000 pounds of trash that were removed. Those numbers represent very different aspects of our homelessness system: housing outcomes, direct outreach, and community impact. That's intentional. Our goal is to look at this issue comprehensively and continue to improve data that we can all understand. Communication also means creating opportunities for conversation outside of the council chambers. On July 31st, we held our very first public outreach opportunity, Coffee with the City, featuring homeless services. It gave community members an opportunity to hear directly from city and our important partners, ask questions, and better understand how the homeless response system actually works. As you can see, it was standing room and it was well attended, so it was really awesome. We are aiming for spring to be the next opportunity. North County Homeless Network also has a convening coming up in October. This will be recognizing the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and will focus on domestic violence and homelessness in partnership with Lumina Alliance. This is an important intersection, particularly when we talk about housing stability and pathways out of homelessness. The goal of the North County Homeless Network isn't simply to convene partners, it's to improve what happens after they leave the room, stronger referral pathways, fewer gaps between services, new partnerships, and better coordination around really complex issues that no single organization can address alone. That same emphasis on coordination carries into Council's second objective, expanding affordable housing opportunities. Council's second objective focuses on expanding affordable housing opportunities, which is a significant effort under one of the city's applications we recently submitted in June through our city's encampment resolution funding application. The application is designed to pair encampment resolution with additional housing opportunities and stronger pathways into permanent housing. We're also continuing engagement with key stakeholders in the area and have developed frequently asked questions so that if the housing opportunity does move forward, we'll find out next month, we'll be ready to go. Another tangible result of the North County Homeless Network is our recent health pop-up with community health centers, CAPSLO, and Family Circle. We just completed this last Friday. Our third objective is increasing access to behavioral health, detox, and substance use services. Through this partnership developed through the network, we are able to bring a healthcare provider and supportive services directly to the individuals experiencing homelessness. The pop-up connected 28 individuals with a primary care doctor, health and housing navigation, testing and treatment, as well as basic resources like food and water. We've already seen the value of this coordination. 2 individuals who have experienced significant barriers to engagement were connected from this pop-up to our community action team, and both have been placed in permanent housing. So being able to be that first contact with them and then have all of the access with our licensed psych tech to how to get them connected to services has been a great example of how the network is moving forward from just a conversation to a partnership, and also outcomes for our community members. 2 areas we're currently focusing on, like I keep talking about, is the Black Oak Drive corridor and the Riverwalk Trail. And the Black Oak neighborhood efforts include daily trash can servicing, thank you to Paso Waste and Recycle, expanding no overnight parking signage along the Riverside Road. The Earthshine and Echo have a Adopt a Street partnership, and Echo has a trash can on campus where bags can be distributed, and Echo's forthcoming Good Neighbor policy. We will reconvene business owners in the fall, and along the Riverwalk Trail, we're planning for expanding lighting thanks to the Recreation Foundation partnership and continuing monthly Earthshine cleanup events. So like I say, no single intervention is going to address every issue. The strategy is to layer improvements. So before I transition over to our point in time, I just wanted to close to again thank Council for their inclusion of housing and homelessness as a strategic goal, because it gives us a clear framework for continuing the work already established through our adopted strategic plan on addressing homelessness. I will pass it over to Linda Belch, our Deputy Director of the county, to talk about our point in time results.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Belch, Deputy Director with the County of San Luis Obispo Department of Social Services, Homeless Services Division. Tonight I'll be sharing information about the point-in-time count countywide and also information specific to the city of Paso Robles. I want to begin by recognizing the scale of this effort. This year, 261 volunteers deployed from logistics centers across the county. We also received technical and operational support from county IT and GIS staff, Cal Poly interns, city staff, the Institute for Community Alliance, and our homeless services team. More importantly, we want to acknowledge the individuals experiencing homelessness who participated in the count and shared information about their experiences. Their participation is essential to helping us understand homelessness in our community. I'll begin by sharing a countywide snapshot, highlighting major trends, including inventory context, and then spend the latter part of this presentation looking specifically at the city of Paso Robles information. The total number of persons experiencing homelessness is comprised of both sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. Sheltered homelessness for this measure is defined as emergency shelters, such as the 90-day or overnight programs, transitional housing, or temporary housing with services for families or individuals. Unsheltered homelessness refers to someone living outside or in a place not meant for habitation, such as living in vehicles, under overpasses, or on sidewalks. On the night of January 26, 2026, the point-in-time count identified 1,118 people experiencing homelessness countywide. Of those, 666 were experiencing unsheltered homelessness, and 452 were staying in emergency shelter or transitional housing. Put another way, that's about 60% of people counted were unsheltered, with 40% able to access needed shelter. The point-in-time count is a one-night snapshot of homelessness in our community. For the sheltered count, we use HMIS data. For the unsheltered count, volunteers canvass the county and collect information via both interviews or observational counts. In 2024, we moved from a sample survey methodology to a more complete census approach, and we repeated that methodology in 2026 with enhanced GIS mapping. We cross-verified surveys and observations to remove duplicates and improve accuracy. While no point-in-time count captures every person experiencing homelessness, using a consistent methodology gives us important tools for understanding trends over time. There are 3 findings that I want to highlight. First, fewer people are experiencing homelessness overall. The county-wide count is down 22% from 2022. The reduction in unsheltered homelessness is even greater and is down 42% since 2022. Additionally, veteran homelessness saw marked improvement and declined 47% since 2024. As with prior point-in-time counts, the majority of the unsheltered population are adult-only households. This represented about 87% of all the households counted in 2026. The report also identifies areas where we need to continue improving. Youth and family homelessness have not shown the same level of progress as some of other populations did. Chronic homelessness and complex service needs remain significant challenges. And while we have expanded housing and shelter inventory, there is an opportunity to improve how fully that inventory is utilized through countywide coordinated entry and stronger provider partnerships. As we move into the data, I want to emphasize that these are not simply numbers on a chart. Each number represents a person in our community and helps us understand where the system is working and where we have room to improve. This chart gives us the longer-term perspective. Total homelessness reached 1,483 people in 2019 and remained high in 2022. By 2024, it had fallen to 1,175, and in 2026, it declined again to 1,118. The most significant change is in unsheltered homelessness, from 1,156 people in 2022 to 800 in 2024 and 666 in 2026. This slide looks more closely at the shift between sheltered and unsheltered homelessness. The direction we want to see is exactly as what is occurring. The unsheltered population is declining, while the number of people who are able to access shelter is increasing. This matters because shelter provides more than a place to sleep. It creates a safer environment and a more consistent opportunity to connect with people for case management, behavioral health services, benefits, housing navigation, and ultimately permanent housing. Looking at the same information as a proportion makes the change even clearer. In 2019, nearly 80% of people counted were unsheltered. Homelessness impacts every region in our county. San Luis Obispo accounts for approximately 45%, while North County is 34%, South County at 18%, and the coastal region about 3%. One point I do want to emphasize that there are many factors that can influence a point-in-time count, including the number of volunteers in any one particular area and whether any encampment clearances occurred recently prior to the count. While this regional distribution is an important metric, a full understanding of homelessness needs to be including both point-in-time data and data from the HMIS system. For tonight's discussion, the important point really is that roughly 1/3 of the countywide point-in-time population is in North County. That emphasizes the importance of strong North County shelter, outreach, housing, behavioral health, and city partnerships. The age distribution shows that homelessness affects residents across their lifespan. The largest group are adults between 35 and 64, but we also counted children, transition-aged youth, and older adults. This diversity matters because appropriate response is not the same for every household. This slide shows the racial and ethnic composition of the point-in-time population. We monitor this information because an effective homelessness response also needs to understand whether a particular population is disproportionately represented and whether access to services and housing opportunities is equitable. One of the questions we frequently hear is whether people experiencing homelessness in San Luis Obispo County are primarily coming here from somewhere else. Among the unsheltered residents who responded to this question, the overwhelming majority have lived in San Luis Obispo County for at least 1 year, and many here for more than 5. While this chart shows the county-wide trend, I was able to pull out the reporting data for the city of Paso Robles in specific. Data collected for persons experiencing homelessness in the city of Paso Robles showed that 75% have lived in San Luis Obispo County for at least 5 years, with another 17% having lived in San Luis Obispo County for between 1 to 5 years. The 2026 data also shows that a substantial number of people are staying in vehicles, with smaller numbers in parks, under bridges, overpasses, or in abandoned buildings and other locations. These shifts matter because outreach strategies need to adapt to where people are actually staying. Vehicular homelessness, for example, requires a different engagement approach than a concentrated encampment. This slide adds an important piece of context. The homelessness response system has more capacity than it did several years ago. The housing inventory count shows that 1,737 beds were available in 2026, with 1,493 occupied on the night measured, or about an 86% utilization. One of the reasons we see a dip in utilization is because of the expansion of warming center capacity countywide. As part of the 2026 point in time, we asked providers to activate their warming center beds. However, the weather was not as cold or rainy as it is on nights when those warming center beds are typically activated, so we did see some empty warming center beds. Outside of the warming center beds, we do see an opportunity to continue strengthening referral pathways, coordinated entry, and provider coordination to ensure that people are being matched to the available resources. I want to shift now from the countywide picture to the city of Paso Robles. On the night of the 2026 point-in-time count, 266 people were counted in Paso Robles. Of those, 183 were unsheltered and 83 were sheltered. That means approximately 69% were unsheltered and 31% were sheltered. Paso Robles accounted for about 27% of the entire county-wide point-in-time count, which again underscores the importance of our partnerships together. Looking at age in Paso Robles, most of the individuals represented in this data are adults between 25 and 54, which is generally consistent with the broader countywide pattern. The data also includes children, transition-aged youth, older adults, and seniors. I do want to highlight that there were no children under the age of 18 counted in the unsheltered portion of the count. So what has contributed to this encouraging trend? Since the previous point-in-time count, more than 300 additional affordable housing units have been completed, creating more permanent destinations for people moving out of homelessness. We have expanded access to shelter, including local warming shelter support, and increased emergency shelter capacity. Outreach and engagement have expanded, along with stronger provider coordination and more targeted connection to shelter, housing, and critical services. We've also leveraged our coordinated entry system and integrated many processes through there in order to leverage the power of coordinated response. We should not attribute the point-in-time decline to any one intervention, but taken together, these investments and system improvements are consistent with the progress we are seeing, particularly the substantial decline in unsheltered homelessness. The 2026 point-in-time count gives us reason to be encouraged. We have fewer people experiencing homelessness, significantly fewer people living unsheltered, and more people connected to shelter than we did 4 years ago. But this progress does not mean the work is finished. The population that remains unsheltered increasingly requires intensive, coordinated interventions that make our partnerships even more important. Paso Robles and North County are essential partners in this regional response. The progress reflected in these numbers is something we have accomplished together, and continued coordination will be critical to sustaining that progress and helping more people move from homelessness to housing. Thank you for your partnership, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, no, yeah, there one, okay. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Ashley. Pro Tem Gregory, you had a question.
Yes, Linda, thank you for the report, and Ashley for yours. In the beginning of your presentation, you said families are a critical mass. With the recent opening of the 30 beds for families at Echo and Tuscadero, will that assist in that a lot because it's a housing issue?
Thank you. Yeah, so Echo's family wing that they opened, we're excited to celebrate with them. We do have families that are currently in shelter, but they might be in hotels. And so while they're not represented in our point-in-time count, those families can now move into a location with more support and resources. So we're very excited to see that come online.
Thank you.
Okay, over here, Chris Bell, you
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Ashley.
have a question?
The point came up the other night, the transition from homelessness to Echo to Home Key, some other service, to society. That's a process. That takes a while. It doesn't happen overnight. Government-assisted housing of some kind is critical to making that happen. But the goal is to get out of government-assisted housing into self-supported housing. We're doing a good job of that, but we're still massively short on the number of beds, rooms, homes that we need. Any guess, any feel for what would make a meaningful impact and how to make that happen? We saw a number on the slide that I hadn't seen before on your housing. You think you had 300 that have been built countywide? If we had another 300, that would help, obviously, but what are we actually short, do you think?
That's an excellent question, and I don't know that I have a good answer, other than I know our partners in affordable housing have been working really hard to bring those units online, and that has significantly helped. A large part of the struggle with building affordable housing is they are also competing for limited resources at the state, the tax credits and things like that. So I think the best thing we could do as a community is to advocate for continued investment in those tax credits so that our affordable housing builders can bring those units online. We have units that have been in development for literally decades, just trying to find that funding to actually open the doors. And so if we can unlock that resource, I think we would see pretty incredible results pretty fast.
And then the last, the survey that we use on our phones, those numbers aren't transferable to the survey. That once that point in time count is done, that survey is over. So we just have to go back to the website and pick up that bottom location, right?
Yes, so the community report's available online that has all of the numbers available. They don't have the city of Paso Robles pulled out specifically, but I'd be happy to pull the information from the presentation and give you like a one-sheet handout if that'd be helpful.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman Beal.
Thank you. Super information. I think I know the answer to this, but I want to make sure. You said that there was a material change or an improvement in housing unhoused veterans. Can you speak to what is behind that and what we can learn from it?
Absolutely. So we have a wonderful program called SSVF. So there is dedicated funding for veterans to house them, which is always helpful. Previously, that program was run in multiple silos with Excel sheets, right, to track the different tasks that needed to be completed. Last year, the HMIS staff was able to embed that workflow into HMIS, so the case manager's ability to do case managing by name by the veterans to know exactly who needs to be served, exactly what resources are available, and have coordinated case response is definitely something that we're looking at as having had a major positive impact on the veteran homelessness numbers.
That's great. And would you say that the funding for our unhoused veterans is different than funding for other groups, or?
It is different. We do have dedicated funding sources, so money is always sometimes the deciding factor on who can be moved into housing. Again, we're so grateful for those resources for our veterans who definitely are worthy of that, but additional resources to serve the rest of the population would definitely be helpful.
Thank you. And then I have a question for Ashley. Ashley, I'm very excited to see the pop-up health collaboration that's happening. Can you talk me through what the thinking is on how often you would do that? Will it be on a schedule? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, thanks to the county, the CAPSLO did apply for a grant, so they are there every Friday to provide reproductive health and also just general checkups. What we found in that time is that you can test live there. They were testing positive for hepatitis C, but our provider was not able to treat it. So we reached out to CHC, Community Health Centers, and talked about this specific need. They helped us identify a doctor who knows how to treat it. And if you didn't know, I just found out, you can be cured from hepatitis C in 12 weeks with treatment. So we were spreading the word around the riverbed and were able to do some direct outreach to those who have tested positive, in which people were open to receiving treatment. What I think is the biggest outcome out of that is just being able to get people to advocate for themselves and a level of health. And we're hoping that conversation can continue. Already, we've seen 2 people be housed once we connect them to our community action team, who can get them with a behavioral health provider, get them an assessment, and then go from there. So it's been a really good, first touch point with folks down there. And getting to also just know them by name and sit down with them at a pop-up has been great.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Council's good. I'll open up the public. Anybody have any question on this one? Dale?
Dale Augustin. I've been very fortunate to have known 2 individuals that have been involved in the homeless people. One is Noreen Martin. She married Tom Martin, and when Tom Martin sold a business for a lot of money, he said to her, "Is there something I can do that would with some of that money?" And Noreen said, "Yes, build a woman's shelter to help the women of domestic violence that are being made homeless." Tom did that. And now Noreen is on TV doing a promo for Women's Alliance, which is the current organization to help those women. And the other person that I want to shout out for is Bob Shore. Bob Shore had a winery, and then eventually he retired. And when he retired, he devoted all his time to helping the homeless. He helped start Paso Care, and he's still out there devoting an awful lot of time to helping the homeless. And somebody finally recognized him. Bob Shore has been recognized as Senior of the Month by KSBY, and I laud him for that.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, we do definitely thank all the people of Paso Robles with their helping hands for this particular subject. So, oh, Yeah. Tim? Yeah, this is speaking to this item, though.
Oh, just sorry, okay.
Yeah, not yet, yeah, this is, yeah. So anyone else on this item? Okay, we'll go ahead and close it. Thank you, guys, for the information. Appreciate it.
Mayor Hammond, I have a caller,
Oh, okay. We have one caller.
Stephanie Potter.
Stephanie, can you hear us? Go ahead.
Hi, yes, Stephanie with Echo. I just wanted to thank Linda and Ashley, and thank you so much to the city for your continued support and partnership. Because of collaborations like this, we're able to provide so many vital resources and programs to individuals and families experiencing homelessness every day. This work really is a community effort, and it takes all of us coming together to create a lasting impact. We're just so grateful to be doing this work alongside all of you and to be tackling this together. So again, just thank you.
Thank you for your service for these people. Thank you. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you, Melissa. We'll go ahead and close this item. Now, we'll go ahead and move on to general public comments. This is the time that the public may address the City Council on items within its purview, but not scheduled on tonight's agenda. Council or staff may briefly respond to statements or questions posed by the public. Please fill out a speaker card and hand it to our city clerk upon speaking. You'll have 3 minutes. Those people wishing to speak on any item scheduled on tonight's agenda will be given the opportunity at the time the item is being considered. So Tim, now you're up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Francis. I'm the new commander of the American Legion. For those of you who don't know what the American Legion is, it's filled with members who have served honorably. Like our police over there, we are trained to be defensive and offensively with precision and discipline. Like the firefighters, we're trained to run towards trouble. Sometimes we got in trouble. But that's not really what I came here about. I wanted to just let you know a few things about the American Legion for those who don't know, that we help and serve our community in many ways. We help with the Boys and Girls State. We help with ECHO, Honor Flight, Veterans Helping Veterans, Coats for Kids, Slow Food Bank, Toy Bank, Paso Cares, Skills for USA, and we have our own Legion baseball team now, if you didn't know that. But I also want to talk about 3 events that we have going on. I'm going to pass some flyers. I'll put it there at the back. Just so you know, on the 29th of August, we're having a music venue there where we have 8 recording artists that will be coming and playing at different times. And that will be a free event. And we originally slated it from 12 to 4, but we had so many musicians, it's going 12 to 5. We're also going to have a taco truck. And it's a family event, so bring your family and bring the kids, mom and dad.
Where's that going to be?
That is going to be at the Veterans Hall, which is at 240 Scott Street. And like I said, I have some flyers on there. For those who don't know that, on Thursdays, we have a hamburger lunch. It is the cheapest hamburger in town for $8. Can you get a burger anywhere else for $8? No, you can't. And we serve it with coleslaw, chips, and cookies. So come on out. It's between 11 and 1 every Thursday. Also, we have another event coming up for our American Legion Riders, and that will be on September 26th, and that is their poker run. Okay? And that is our biggest fundraiser that we have for the entire year. So we encourage everybody to come out for that. Anybody have any questions about the American Legion? Ask me now. I'll tell you all about it. And I know you guys don't really see us very often come up here. I know my partner with the VFW, Leo, comes out here. But thank you.
Thank you, Commander Francis. Appreciate it for being here tonight. Bill, welcome.
Mayor, council members, community members, good evening. My name is Bill Britton, and I'm here representing the Spaceport Working Group. I want to take a couple minutes tonight to invite the council and our community to something I think is going to be very special for Paso Robles. It is the kickoff of the Global Positioning Satellite, GPS, Heritage and Space Innovation Awards kickoff event. This is sponsored by several organizations in town, to include the Paso Robles Rotary. This event will be held on a very special date, September 11th, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. at the Warbirds Museum. Now, the idea behind this is pretty simple. Honor the people who helped change the world and use their story to inspire the people who will change it next. Now, GPS is something most of us are very familiar with. It's on your phone tracking you. I mean, you're using it to track yourself. It's available in your car. It's everywhere. Now, I don't know if you know that Paso Robles has a very remarkable connection to the GPS story. And that is that the father of GPS, the gentleman's name is Dr. Bradford Parkinson. Not only is he the father of GPS, but he's also the father of our sheriff, Ian Parkinson. Also, in our region, Dr. Michael Yarmovich was the chief scientist of the Air Force when Dr. Parkinson was pushing the project through, and his son Nick lives in this region as well. So we have a very strong connectivity to that, and what we're doing is using this event as the launch point. That's a space pun for those who didn't pick it up, as a launch point for two different, what we believe are very unique Paso Robles awards. The first being the Parkinson Yarmovich Heritage Award. It is an award to someone working in the aerospace innovation arena, and that'll be given to an individual as a plaque that awards them for something they've done special, particularly for development of the aerospace business in this region. The second one is really exciting. It is the Parkinson Yarmovich Scholarship. It's an annual $5,000 a year scholarship to a student graduating, pursuing a degree or credential or technical education in a field connected to space and aerospace. And that's kind of why it belongs here in Paso Robles, is we have the Warbirds Museum with an extraordinary aviation heritage. We're going to be acquiring models of satellites and launch systems to be placed in the museum and use that kickoff to honor these pioneers, to develop that connectivity of our past, our present, and our future. And so, who are we going to inspire to build what comes next? Our youth. And that's what we're trying to focus on, is connecting the youth to our past and the future. Thank you very much. I hope to see you there.
Thank you for your leadership, Bill. Appreciate the help. Welcome.
Good evening. On behalf of Paso Robles Democratic Party, after a review of our Mid-State Fair presence, where we averaged over 100 positive contacts from the attendees, and that's in a 4-hour shift, we want to give a major shout out to the city's maintenance department for working all night to fix the major water main break at the 24th Street overpass. The fair opened as scheduled without delay, and everyone had a good time. There must have been a lot of booze sold that day.
You bet.
We enjoyed our time there. We only saw about 6 fistfights after the concerts. So that's what I wanted to say, but I have a question. When is council moving to your...
I've asked that many times.
Because it's really hard to hear.
Maybe we can get a little update toward the end of the meeting. We'll let you know how things are going. It's getting close. Thank you. Anyone else? And do we have anyone online, Melissa?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Thank you. We'll move on then to agendas, items to be deferred. Oh, you want to go ahead and give a little report now? Yeah?
Sure, Mayor, I can. Our goal is to get you back in there. Initially, it was going to be the end of September. I think it's trending more to early October now. But we're working on it. I was in there today. There's a lot of work happening. There are several different facets to that project. We're assembling some IT equipment off-site that has to come in. There was some saw cutting work that had to be done that wasn't originally anticipated in the location that it needed to be done. And then again, we have some longer lead times on some other items. So the work is continuing. There's a lot of dust going on right now in that facility. I think it's going to be better than when you last saw it, and greatly appreciate the patience. I know the technology in the space here isn't what we had before, but we're going to be returning you, I think, to a nice new chamber very quickly, and we'll keep you updated. Happy to send out more periodic updates for the council as the project continues. And happy to give tours if anyone would like a quick check-in tour of the project.
Yeah, I was in there 2 days ago, and it's getting there. But yeah, thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. On to you then, again, agendas, items to be deferred.
No items tonight, Mayor, to be deferred.
Okay. Can you give us an overview of items on consent?
Yes, Mayor, happy to do so. We have 9 items on consent calendar tonight. The first is the approval of the minutes from your August 4th council meeting. Second is the receipt of advisory body meeting minutes. This is for several advisory body meetings, including the Community Services Special Joint Reorganization meeting that took place on June 17th, the Youth Commission meeting on July 1st, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting on July 13th, and the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee meeting also on July 13th. Item number 3 is the designation of voting delegates and alternates for the 2026 League of California Cities. And staff is also recommending the council take a support position on a proposed resolution that will be considered at the conference. Mayor, if I may, given the nature of this item with establishing a voting delegate and 2 alternates, up to 2 alternates, the council may want to consider just spending a moment here and figuring that out.
I was going to have it written down. We're going to go there, but why don't you go on?
Perfect. I'll keep going. I just wanted to flag that one since it's a little bit different of an item. Item number 4 is the receipt of a warrant register. The city has made about $4.5 million in various payments since your last meeting. I will cover those transactions that exceed $100,000. The first is a payment to San Luis Obispo County Public Works Department. This is for energy costs associated with, I believe, the Nacimiento infrastructure for the months of January through March. This comes out of the water fund in the amount of $142,269.06. Next is a payment to Souza Construction. This is for the construction related to the downtown parking lot repairs coming out of the capital fund in the amount of $145,274.55. Next is a payment to Visit SlowCal. This is a pass-through payment for the amount of the assessment that's collected to fund the Visit SlowCal operations. This is for May of 2026. In the amount of $139,659.73. Similarly, next item is a payment to Travel Paso, again, for their work in the Tourism Improvement District. Again, this is a pass-through amount for May of 2026 assessments in the amount of $185,273.03. Next is a payment to USA Bank for the 2019 general obligation bonds in the amount of $1,676,750. Next is a payment to GHD Inc. This is related to work that the city is undertaking on the US 101 46 West roundabout project in partnership with SlowCog in the amount of $120,380.02. Next is a payment to our risk pool, California JPIA. This is a payment for our annual property insurance program in the amount of $329,945. And then finally, Mayor, on the warrant register, we have a payment to First American Title Company. This is related to a parcel that the city is purchasing for the 24th Street Bridge widening project that the council previously approved in the amount of $389,685. Jumping back over to the consent calendar, item number 5 is the approval of the general obligation bond tax rate for fiscal year 26-27. Just a unique note here, it is not a typo in your agenda. The approved rate is 0.00000. Essentially, we're getting towards the end of the bond terms, and between reserves and other revenues that are coming into that fund, there's no need to assess properties for the fiscal year for the general obligation bond repayment. Item number 6 is the approval of a resolution that authorizes submittal of a grant application for years 26, 27, and 27, 28. This is to the state for a beverage container recycling grant. If approved, this funding would be utilized to help reduce and divert beverage containers and the use of beverage containers by installation of certain water fountains and water filling stations at various city facilities. There is no local match required for that grant. Item number 7 is the approval of a resolution that authorizes the city to enter into a contract for certain engineering services. We have had some changes in our engineering division and are temporarily down some staff while we go through those transitions. This contract is necessary in part to keep projects moving and keep engineering services moving forward. Item number 8 is a notable item. It's the approval of a community park maintenance agreement and acceptance of Phase 1 park improvements. This is out in the Olson South Chandler specific plan area. This includes the city's acceptance of pickleball courts, as well as a restroom facility and landscaping area. These are separate and in addition to the Sherwood pickleball courts. So if this is accepted today, I believe I've been told that they will open tomorrow officially to the public if that is to happen. And then item number 9 is the approval of a memorandum of agreement between the city and the County of San Luis Obispo regarding the city's 2026 Sphere of Influence update. This is a process we go through with LAFCO, and this agreement helps provide some framework and guidelines to how that process is going to work. It really does not bind the city or LAFCO to any requirement or any one thing, but it's more of a general agreement in principle of how that process is going to work. So with that, Mayor, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Huat. Items on consent calendar are considered routine and do not normally require separate discussion. However, any member of the council or the public that has specific questions or wants a clarification on an item, we can get those answered before the vote is taken. Secondly, any member of the council who wants a full discussion of a particular item will cause that item to be pulled from the consent and moved to the discussion items for agenda for tonight. I will ask the public first if they have any questions, then I'm going to bring it back to council. So anybody wishing to have a question? Dale?
Yeah, Dale Guston. As to the Lake Nacimiento water that's being piped down to Paso Robles, when is Paso Robles ever going to start really using that instead of pumping it into the river to go north?
Well, we can answer that if you'd like. Christopher, I hate to ask you to come all the way up, but we are definitely using water. Yeah, it's still limping a little bit, yeah. Yeah. Christopher, you got the question.
Yeah, the city of Paso Robles has been using Nasi water since that pipeline has been completed. In fact, we built a surface water treatment plant, microfiltration facility dedicated specifically to treating that water. That plant runs all year round. It treats about 2 million gallons a day. We also use Nacimiento water to recharge our Salinas River underflow, our major well field in the city. So we use a significant amount of Nasi water all year long.
I think we're the major user of Nasi.
We are the
right
primary
now.
user
Yeah.
off of that pipeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Anyone else? Question? Sharon, welcome.
Hi, Sharon Roden, Paso Robles. Just a quick clarification on number 7 with the engineering. I think it's not more than 500,000. Can you give clarification of how much of that is actually passed through to applicants and how much is actually going to be absorbed by the city?
It's mostly all recovered, but Chris, can you handle that one?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So in your staff report, we don't provide an exact number, but a significant portion of this amount is recovered both through engineering permit and development related fees. A small amount may be not recoverable because it's time spent on a city project that is outside a development-related item, but for the most part, it's development-related.
A follow-up question on that, too. We are on the hunt for a new engineer, and can you give us a little status of what's happening there?
Yes, we retained a recruiter. We're out in the marketplace right now for a new engineer. I believe, I'm going to defer to Mr. Fraze, we're still in that recruitment period, but he may be able to provide an updated timeline for you.
Yeah, we're in the application period. It closes on the 24th, and then we'll roll into interview process.
Very good. Thank you, Warren. Anyone else on consent questions from the public? Anyone online, Melissa?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll bring it back then to council. Any council member have any questions on a particular one? Councilmember Bausch.
I think we're going to discuss J3.
Yeah.
I also have a question on.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
I also have a question on J5 and J6.
Okay, why don't we just take 3 real quick, and let's open that up for discussion. We need to basically designate a member of our council to be the voting delegate. Fred, I think you've been in the past the main lead on that. Would you agree to do that again? So now we also need to have a alternate, 1 or 2?
Cal Cities allows up to 2 voting alternates.
Okay.
All volunteer.
I'm not going this year. Chris, are you going? Okay. Any other discussion on that? Okay, so we can go ahead and then designate Fred and Chris as being our 2 primary ones that we're going to be doing that. And then you had a little information on a particular resolution that you want to discuss?
Yes, so some years there's a policy resolution that Cal Cities will consider and that the voting delegate will have to consider. And some years there are not. This year there was a resolution proposed. There's a summary in your staff report. Essentially, given the amount and the number of housing-related bills and land use bills coming out of the state, this resolution calls for the League of California Cities to support the development of some sort of state, they're calling it either a constitutional amendment or other policy to strengthen local authority over certain land use decisions and housing decisions, zoning and density and that sort of thing, as opposed to, I think, what a lot of cities have been seeing and feeling over the last many years, which is less opportunity to determine, what may best fit in a certain area or on a certain parcel. There's kind of this one-size-fits-all model that I know a lot of cities have been feeling coming down from the state. So this is non-binding, meaning that this doesn't bind the state to actually make any changes. This is simply directing the work plan and part of the league for the foreseeable future to work on this issue.
So essentially, it says basically local control, more of it. I certainly would agree that we should always support local control rather than let Sacramento. So do we have like a consensus from the council that would be our thought? Everybody nodded? Yeah.
Do it by vote on that.
I don't think we need to vote on it, but just direction, I think, is kind of what the 2 delegates need to know is how we're feeling, right? Okay. Any other questions from council? Go ahead, Chris.
I just had a quick question on the community park in terms of like what the overall concept of the park was. I mean, I see that some is sort of maintained, some has sort of drainage functions. I didn't really understand it. And then also, as you're kind of negotiating and assigning responsibility for different parts of maintenance, like how are those decisions made? Are you working with Public Works and Community Services to sort of decide if they can do it?
Yeah, we'll give you a quick little overview on that project real quick. So this was part of the Olson South Chandler specific plan. This was approved by the City Council in 2020, so that included the approval of the specific plan along with the development agreement. The specific plan was part of a week-long citywide charrette process where the concept was developed with a lot of input. That concept was then brought back to the Planning Commission and City Council for endorsement, and then that became the basis for preparation of the specific plan. So one of the features of the specific plan was this linear park. So there's an existing creek, Turtle Creek, that had been basically degraded by 100 years of agricultural uses. So the idea was to reestablish that creek and create a linear park that would then connect to Royal Oak Park, which is an existing city park right here. So these are the, straight out of the specific plan. So this is the overall plan. And then this green area here is what we originally was called Turtle Creek Park. It's now called Creekside Park. The idea was it was going to be a public community park, but it was going to be a linear park. So it was more of a linear feature around an existing rehabilitated creek. City worked together, so the Community Services Department, your Parks Department, during the specific plan development process, identified different facilities that were needed. Some of those facilities were assigned to the Beechwood specific plan. Some were assigned to this project, so the pickleball court, the restrooms, and then the rehabilitation of Royal Oak Park with the new basketball court and the new playground. That was all part of the process. So that's how we got to the design of the park. What we're expecting today is the pickleball court and the trails and the bathroom that's here in this phase 1 area. So that was all negotiated as part of the specific plan. In addition, the specific plan and the development agreement also outlined all the maintenance responsibility for all the facilities. So because this is a city park, the city is responsible for maintaining the active recreational facilities. These hatched areas are all the habitat restoration areas, and those are actually requirements of the developer. Those are requirements of the U.S. government that those have to be restored. So they're responsible for 5 to 7 years, depending on the plant type, to maintain that. Once they're done, it is city property, then City Public Works will basically take over the long-term maintenance. But because it's a natural creek, it should just be limited to weed abatement in the summer. In addition, these blue areas are detention basins that were part of the project. They ended up being located next to the creek because that's where all the water needs to go. So that has a more complex maintenance share, which is illustrated with these little diagrams here. But the landscaping, the slopes, the fencing, those all are the responsibility of the project, which is the HOA long-term. The actual drainage facilities, the inlets, the outlets, the concrete structures that are storm control features, those will be maintained by Public Works. So that's the purpose of the maintenance agreement, is to clarify exactly how all of these features will be maintained in the future.
Item 5, and I'm not sure if you want to have Ryan come up. Ryan, would you kind of explain this item to the public? I think it's kind of impressive what we've done over the years with this, and I think the public would like to know what they've accomplished, basically. And you rarely see a tax rate of 0.0000, right? So you can explain that as well.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Ryan Cornell, Attendance Services Director. The item before you is the approval of the general obligation tax rate. Back in 1998, the voters approved Measure D98, which was a bond measure or bond authorization that funded a new number of capital projects throughout the city, including the Niblick Bridge, the 13th Street Bridge, the Public Safety Center, Barney Sports Park, the Senior and Veteran Center, and the like. There was a whole laundry list of different projects that this revenue bond funded. So since 1998, or right around 1999 when we actually took the bonds out, we've been slowly paying back that debt service. So the debt service expires in fiscal year 27-28. Because the assessed values have increased so rapidly, we've been slowly reducing the rate below our maximum allowable. Now we're at the finish line, so we actually have enough fund reserves plus some lingering revenues that are going to be coming in this next year to cover the rest of the debt service payment. So we don't need to collect any more taxes from the residents for this particular bond.
So the question I was going to ask on that, I'm not sure if it's legal, if it's, I don't know what the bond structure looks like. And if it makes sense, if we're at zero, if we don't, and if we have any bond needs coming up, I don't think we do, why not pay it off and just zero it out?
Yes, depending on the specific bond, they come callable at different years, different fiscal years. We're such to the end, it's going to be so minute to the interest rates that we've been saving money now versus later. At the end of the day, we still need to figure out how to close out this fund completely as well.
So I don't, there is no benefit really to doing that. I looked at the numbers. There's not a whole lot of numbers that you provided to us, but you don't see a benefit to paying it off.
Not 2 years early, no.
Yeah, okay. Thought I'd ask. Thanks. I have another question on 6.
Hang on. Fred, did you have a question too?
No.
Okay, you have your light on. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Thanks. On the water stations that we're anticipating, Leslie, on the water stations, is there any kind of maintenance on those? Is that strictly a water fountain? Is there any filtration that has to be maintained? And if so, is there any cost to that?
So there will be, am I on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So the application is for 19 water bottle filling stations. As Chris mentioned, there isn't a match for city funds to install it. There will be a maintenance cost associated with that. So it will be, it will be a public facility, and the city will be maintaining that.
Is that something we should be budgeting for? Negligible? Do we have a guesstimate on what those are going to be on an annual basis?
I can, look into that and provide more information.
Is that something we are just going, we know we're going to be able to budget for?
I believe we'll be able to absorb the cost typically, or I believe, and Ms. Frazier can correct me, a lot of what we're trying to do here is replace existing water fountains so that are under the useful life or they're non-operational. And so we need to do that, I think, one way or another in a lot of the facilities. So as we transition to like newer technology, like the filtered bottle stations, I don't want to use the term that's the cost of doing business, but we will factor that into future year maintenance budgets. And we're actually going through a top-to-bottom approach from an asset management perspective on what we have in terms of these types of assets. So I'm assuming that'll also be built into that program and into future year projections. But we will factor that in future budget years if we get the grant.
And the other way I thought about it is we're doing a parks upgrade anyway. And so I don't know if it would come out of that budget. It's necessary, and it is something, kind of a cost of doing business. And I think it's a benefit, it's an enhancement, but I just want to make sure we're aware of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're finished with all the council questions. And
Just
we've had public comment.
One quick comment.
Sure, Brett, go ahead.
And that is, in my observation this week, was that after the break of dawn, right after the break of day, the pickleball carts start being used. Yeah. And before it gets hot, they're all in full use. Mm-hmm. So it's a real good investment for the public.
Absolutely.
With that, I'm willing to move approval of consent calendar items 1 through 9.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Strong, second by Gregory. Any discussion on the items? Okay, we'll call for the question.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I will say also, I believe we're scheduled for September 10th for the actual ribbon cutting on pickleball. I think that's what staff has been working on right now. Is that about what we see, Chris?
Yeah, we're going to get our courts confused and mixed up here, but yes, the Sherwood courts, yes.
Sherwood, right.
September 10th, 10 a.m. is when we've scheduled that ribbon cutting. So that'll be an exciting opportunity. And then we will schedule a formal ribbon cutting for these other courts that you accepted this evening at a later time to be determined, but we'll make that announcement when that date and time's available.
Very good, thank you. All right, moving on, then we'll go ahead and get to public hearings. We'll open public hearing for the first item, introduction, first reading of an ordinance amending Municipal Code Title 14.02 for AB 1572 compliance. Kirk, you have our item for us?
Am I on? Mic test. You guys hear me? Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Hammond. Members of the council, pleased to be here this evening presenting item K1 for us. This is the introduction and first reading by title only of an ordinance to amend the city's municipal code for compliance with State Assembly Bill 1572. Slide, please. Thank you. Assembly Bill 1572 establishes a phased statewide prohibition on irrigation of non-functional turf with potable water. It applies to public properties. I'm sorry? You guys can't hear me. I put it in my mouth. Thank you. No problem. Let me do this. Give me just a moment. No worries. Okay, that's better. Not too loud. Okay, so I'll start over. The Assembly Bill 1572 has been established by the state, and it effectively prohibits irrigation of non-functional turf on a handful of properties using potable water. Those properties that it does apply to are listed here on the left-hand side of the slide. Public and government properties are affected. Commercial, industrial, and other institutional properties, also HOAs and common interest properties are affected. The prohibition does not apply to independently owned residential properties. It doesn't apply to recreational or community gathering areas. Obviously, those are exempted. They're considered functional turf areas. It also doesn't apply to cemeteries or areas where irrigation with potable water is required to maintain tree health. Slide, please. Whose slide? Yeah, I couldn't get it to work. Oh, there we go. It's working now. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. So there's a couple requirements that the city must fulfill to comply with AB 1572. The first is that as a public water supplier, we need to adopt changes to our water use policies to conform to the state's requirements, and we also need to communicate those requirements to our customers. So that's really the item that's before you this evening. Additionally, as a property owner, we also need to comply with the prohibitions on the city-controlled or city-owned properties. And the timelines for the phased implementation for that prohibition are described here on the second portion of the slide. So public and local government properties need to comply by January 1st of 2027. The following year, commercial, industrial, and other institutional properties are required to comply. And then by January 1st of 2029, HOAs and common interest properties need to comply. I do want to kind of emphasize here that, again, we're just dealing with the changes to the municipal code this evening. We've already started the communication, the outreach steps for making our public aware of those changes. So we're just focusing on that portion, but I will speak a little bit later to some of the requirements that we'll need to fulfill as property owners and maintainers of these areas. All right, so next, just to briefly discuss kind of examples and the definition overall of non-functional turf. I think in general, non-functional turf is a turf area, which is a grass mowed area, as the state defines it. And non-functional means that it doesn't have a use for public gathering or recreation. So when we're talking about functional turf areas, recreation fields, playgrounds, those sorts of facilities, community gathering areas, those are all exempt, or this prohibition does not apply to them. But in terms of non-functional turf, parking strips, medians, parkways, those sorts of things will be impacted by this. This is what the legislation really focuses on. This next slide kind of summarizes our implementation. On the left-hand side is kind of where we are now. Before January of 2027, the city needs to, again, notify our public and revise or make changes to our municipal code to mirror the requirements of the state. And then on the right-hand side of the slide are those kind of step-through phased implementation, first public agencies, government properties in 2027, commercial, industrial, and other institutional in 2028, and then HOAs and what have you in 2029. Real briefly here, I want to just highlight some of the outreach that we've done so far. Our staff's been working to make and maintain a website. We posted that quite a few months back. It's really dedicated to resources for the community and folks that are subject to these changes that they could use to really understand what the changes are and figure out how to best comply with them. We've also been conducting direct outreach through mailers in our bill inserts and emails. We've also hosted one workshop so far in partnership with a couple of other agencies, and that was to get the word out there to the community, and we do plan to have follow-up workshops in the coming years as well. And then finally, I do want to mention our longstanding turf rebate program is still in effect, so folks that want to convert an eligible grass area and get it onto a drought-tolerant landscape, that's still available if they haven't participated yet. Okay, so now stepping away from the item this evening in terms of what the city will have to do beyond what we're recommending tonight, we will need to, again, comply at the city-owned properties, and that does include city rights-of-way. So our city departments that have responsibility for those areas, they're well aware of these requirements, and they're in the process of evaluating and assessing the areas that are subject to and will be affected by the prohibition. And they're also developing the best strategies, and those are unique to the different use sites and areas. So they'll be coming to council with, I think, an overall, an overview of what the issues are and how they'd recommend best addressing them and prioritizing. And there's a handful of options here I summarize on the slide. First of all, we need to stop irrigating with potable water on these non-functional turf areas and look to, moving to a drought-tolerant landscape alternative. There's other areas at city facilities that may appear to be non-functional turf, but we have other intentions or designs for those. And so the city is talking about more formally documenting those uses such that when it comes to compliance down the road, we'll be able to point to those. Real briefly, in terms of enforcement, the state of California has primary enforcement authority. They've outlined a framework that really focuses on a self-certification process where basically property owners that have more than 5,000 square feet of irrigated landscape will self-certify that they're in compliance with these requirements, and that's scheduled to begin in 2030, so quite some time away. And there are penalties for folks that aren't complying with the regulation. Also, cities, I understand, can be subjected to the fines if they don't make the changes that are before you this evening. We do, as a local water system and city, have an option to enforce if we choose. However, at this time, staff is recommending that we continue to focus on outreach and education for the public. In terms of fiscal impacts, adoption of the ordinance will have no immediate impact on us, apart from our staff time and our, the costs for the outreach that we've been doing. But we do anticipate that there will be some impacts on our water fund revenue. As we step through this phased implementation, we'll see reduced water use and revenue impact there. And then additionally and separately, there'll be costs associated with converting non-functional turf areas on city property and within city rights-of-way to, a drought-tolerant landscape. We don't have a good handle on what all those are at this point, but we'll be coming to you guys with more information on that. And I think we talked about enforcement already, so we'll skip that. Oh, you know what? We're going backwards. Apologize. Okay, so this second to last slide here, just again summarizing where we are in the process and a couple of key dates. This is the first reading and introduction this evening. We're scheduled for the second reading and adoption on September 1st. And then we'll come, complying with the prohibitions, and self-certification is still quite a ways off. So this slide here, the final slide, I have a URL to the website that I mentioned earlier that can help customers in terms of compliance and understanding the regulations themselves, and a QR code, and the recommendation for this evening. That concludes the report, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Thank you, Kirk.
Sure.
Questions, staff?
I have one.
Pro Tem Gregory.
Yeah, Kirk, just a couple quick questions. So it looks like it's in there already, but I want to make sure that a lot of our turf in these islands or roadways have trees, so they're going to allow us to continue to maintain the trees. So that's going to be okay to do, continue. And does that apply also to the private sector?
Yes, my understanding is that where ceasing irrigation with potable water would affect tree health, you're exempt. But I do think that, in the near term, that's a reasonable reason to continue to irrigate what would otherwise be a non-functional turf area. I do think that the state will look to agencies for further compliance. So while in the immediate term, it may not be really something feasible, where if we turn off that irrigation immediately, those shallow roots are going to suffer because they've long received that shallow water source. I think this, if you look at the timeline, the state seems to be fairly lenient in terms of timing as well as the enforcement approach. But I do think that there's going to be maybe more enforcement down the way and more scrutiny on those areas.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Councilman Strong.
Yes, I'm concerned for the public. Our rents are high enough. And if we have so many homeowners associations, and it's effective for them as of the first of next year's, 2027?
Actually, they're the last to be required to make those changes, and they'll be 29. So January 1st of 2029.
2029?
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's a little bit different. And then the state is enforcing at $1,000 a day penalty.
That's what they're allowed to enforce.
They're allowed to, they could charge less than that.
They may. We're not enforcing. I don't have all the details, and to be honest, the framework is pretty light at this point.
All right.
For enforcement.
Very, very good. I just think our homeowners association should be well aware of what their responsibilities are going to be, so they can deal with it well in advance. And if we can keep them informed as to where we're putting purple pipe, so that maybe they can hook into it for their irrigation systems and then put it on their water meters, I think that would be useful and mutually beneficial. Thank you.
I agree.
Councilmember Belsch.
Thank you. Kirk, I'm not sure this is a viable solution anywhere, or especially here in Paso Robles, but some of the things I'm reading about would be using reclaimed water, non-potable water, while we're waiting for purple pipe, and using that, putting that into a water truck and bringing it around and irrigating things like trees to keep those alive while the solution's worked out. I don't know. I just kind of put that into the spitballs that are going out there and thinking about possible solutions. I don't know if we have a spare water truck floating around in the city yard someplace or not, but and maybe that is something that we can consider. If that's a legal use. We had a complaint along Charlet that trees were drying up and already, and this is before any of this takes effect. I would hate to see the trees that have been, we're used to seeing trees at in the school parking lots, for example, schools that are or trees that are in school yards. What are we going to do with those? So we need to come up with a good cooperative solution. So hopefully we can come up with that. Thanks.
Chris, do you have any questions? No. Kirk, I do. Can you give the public and us a basic overview of our portfolio of water? I mean, this is designed clearly to save water on the state's part, thinking that we need to save every potable drop. Although, can you give us an overview of what our city's water resources are?
Sure. Yes. So, yeah, happy to do so. So, the city does have a fairly robust and reliable water supply portfolio. So we're fortunate in that way. And that is different than, a lot of communities in California. We're still required to comply with this, despite having sufficient water, but we do have, multiple sources. We've got underflow from the Salinas River. We've got the Nacimiento water, which we heard about a little bit earlier. We've got the groundwater source as well. And as you guys know, too, we've got the recycled water program that we've been working through developing segments. So
Roughly
at the right time.
13,000 acre feet roughly is what I remember, and then of that, build-out will only use about 9,500 roughly. So there's quite a lot of extra water that the city has that we will never really need at least for our current plan. And so that's what I'm trying to get at. I know the public got to understand that this is something that they're thinking we're running out of water, or the reason we're doing this from the state level is that we're running out of water. It's not really true. It's just this is something on the Sacramento side that they want to see all cities reduce, and this is going across all of California, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, good. It's one more thing from Sacramento. Anything else from here? We'll open up then to the public. Anybody wishing to have a comment on this, please come forward. Dale?
At one point, the developer was proposing a swimming pool, and I never understood if that was finalized as part of the development. If it was, we want to make sure that there's an entity that's going to be liable for the use of that pool for any damages.
Okay. Anyone else? Bob, yeah? Welcome.
Bob Simone, Christina Court, Paso Robles. I live in one of those neighborhoods that has parking strips with grass and trees separating the sidewalk from the streets.
Parkways. They're called parkways.
Yeah, they're called parkways.
Right.
Are there any thoughts that you would reconfigure the sprinklers so that just the trees are getting water and not the grass? Or are you going to continue watering both until you come up with some other solution?
Anyone else? Okay, Kirk, yeah, if you can go ahead and answer that question, please.
Yes, that's a great observation there, and that is, I think, one of the strategies that the city will be looking at is what modifications can be made to irrigation systems and other, retrofits for the landscaping. So that, I think, will be an important part of finding a solution.
Are you going to try to get that done by January 1, or?
Well, I can't speak to that definitively, but I know that our staff have been looking at options for that. It will take time to get that work done. There's a lot of affected areas, and taking those planning steps, then budgeting for those changes is going to take some time. I think in a lot of ways we're fortunate in that in January, grass doesn't need as much water, vegetation doesn't in general. And so that could afford us a little bit more time to get that critical work done. But again, there is that exemption where tree health is an important exception for this legislation. And so that I think we can leverage to buy ourselves more time in some ways.
It's clear this is going to be an expense on the city's part to get things changed over. And it's going to be in the budget. I'm not sure, did we plan for this in our current budget? I don't think so.
So, Mayor and City Council, we plan to come back to you in October with a more exhaustive review of what the city, what staff will be recommending to you to undertake as part of this process and compliance. We're doing those site evaluations as we speak, trying to determine what meets the absolute and clear definition of non-functional turf. There are other areas of the city that we talked about tonight, like trees that have turf nearby, or turf next to a city facility that is used periodically for gatherings or other types of utilization, where we'll look to reclassify that as functional turf. So that's the process we're going through right now. In terms of the changes that will have to be made, that's also part of the evaluation and what we estimate the cost will be. Some of these will be in the landscape and lighting districts, so just to keep that in mind, and those are separate assessments that are assessed to property owners in the area for the benefit of the nearby landscaping. And so some of this will be borne by the individual landscape and lighting district areas. Part of it will be, the general fund, and then I would imagine that there are other facilities that are in enterprise funds that will bear some cost as well. But we're still tallying up precisely what we're going to have to do to be in the spirit of compliance as of January 1st.
Right. I think, again, what you're speaking to is mostly the east side developments are in those landscape and lighting districts, but mostly the west side, the old part of town, Vine Street, Spring Tree, all that's going to be the big nut to crack, I think. So, comment, anyway?
I just want to wish Dwayne and his team the best wishes for going around and mapping and identifying and inventorying all of these areas that we need to address. And great job on the presentation.
John?
Okay, Councilman Belcher.
So not only, you mentioned in your slide, but I don't want to make light of it, the expense as we do the conversion process, but the loss of revenue as we go forward. Is it going to be significant? Is it, I think a lot of the irrigation is probably being billed off of an irrigation meter rather than a residential, so you don't have that sewer component on the water bill. But it's still going to be a significant amount of revenue loss as that's turned no longer billed. We saw a loss of revenue during the drought, and it took a while to recover from that. So if we can look ahead and plan for that now, that would be very, very important. The other thing that we're reading about is people are anticipating water rates will have to rise. And if that's the case, we should start warning people now. I hope that's not the case here in Paso Robles, but if it is, we should start having that discussion sooner than later.
Yeah, the loss of water revenue does still impact our bottom line, and we still have to have the facility to provide water at a certain level of cost, no matter what. So that's going to be a problem.
That's correct. I would say, and that's a really good point, with this phased implementation, we're going to see these changes over time. So we're fortunate in that regard, and we'll be able to adjust along the way, but you're correct. We will see a revenue reduction with those water savings.
Okay. Melissa, do we have a caller?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Kirk. We'll bring it back then here. Let's
For discussion?
Discussion and or action.
Yeah. For discussion on this item, let's not be too hasty in taking out turf, because if you read the archaeological reports on what's going on, that's going to affect our El Nino and what's going on in the oceans right now and underneath the ocean, we may be in for some of the, not just rain, but flooding. And that turf is going to absorb a lot of that water that may prevent some of the flooding that could happen in this city. So we might not want to get rid of that turf too quickly, because depending upon how long this El Nino factor lasts, and it could be decades, not just a year or two. And we better be careful, because there are major changes coming geologically to this earth right now. And don't ignore them. Become acquainted with them. They're very important to our future. So be careful.
Pro Tem Gregory?
Yep. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. And my first comment is just another taking by the state of California of our rights. We don't need it to happen. But I move to introduce by first reading the title only ordinance XXXX amending Title 14 of the City of Paso del Robles Municipal Code for California Assembly Bill 1572 compliance.
Second.
Motion by Gregory, second by Beal. Discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. We'll close that public hearing, then we'll open up item 2 on public hearing and introduction, first reading, title only ordinance to allow cannabis non-storefront retail and to establish a cannabis regulatory permit, revocation of resolution 22-144, limiting the number of cannabis businesses allowed to operate from premises. Katie Bannister.
Thank you, Mayor Hammond. Yes, as you mentioned, this is an item about cannabis. Obviously, this is an item that's long time in coming. This first slide gives us an idea of just how long it has been. Want to point out that in 2017, the state of California did legalize the delivery of adult use cannabis. So we do not have to allow cannabis delivery offices within the city limits, but we do have to allow the delivery of that product. And so fast forward to 2022, the council did adopt Resolution 22144, which temporarily allowed the three existing cannabis conditional use permit holders to temporarily deliver adult use cannabis. That did expire, but that resolution does still stand. And so that resolution names 3 businesses that are the only businesses that would be eligible to deliver adult use cannabis should you decide to approve it this evening. Fast forward to this year, back in February, we did take some amendments to the Planning Commission for their consideration. Those were zoning amendments, and that would be to allow the adult use cannabis delivery offices. After the Planning Commission made their recommendation, staff realized that we really did have some additional questions for council that we wanted you to clarify for us before we brought the full amendments. So we did that in May 19th. Council did give us direction. We returned to the Planning Commission on July 14th with additional amendments that reflected the City Council's guidance. And the Planning Commission has recommended that the council allow adult use, non-storefront retail businesses, and that we would require a cannabis regulatory permit as well. So a lot of the verbiage around cannabis has gotten overly complicated, but the first 2 definitions do come from state law, and so they are included in our ordinances to bring us into conformance with state law. So adult use cannabis is also known as commercial cannabis or recreational cannabis. This is the cannabis that you don't need a doctor's prescription to purchase and use. So adult use cannabis is the same as recreational cannabis. And a non-storefront retail or non-storefront retailer is a fancy way of saying delivery office or delivery business. This is differentiated from a storefront retail, which would be a dispensary. So that a dispensary is not what we're talking about. We're talking about delivery offices where customers do not come to the office. Deliveries are made at a third place where they are requested. And then finally, a business license tax certificate. We have had some confusion of whether or not the business licenses are regulatory. They are not. They are a business license. It's the way that the city collects business licenses, and so they don't dictate where and how a business can operate. They are just how a business pays their taxes. So the amendments that are before you this evening and the existing cannabis framework have conditionally allowed cannabis business activities in the Riverside Corridor, which is the purple area to the west of the Salinas River, and in the C3 zoning districts. The C3 is largely around Highway 46 East and Golden Hill, so that's the pink area out to the east of town. We do have 2 existing conditional use permits that allow the delivery offices of medical cannabis. They are the yellow and blue stars, and so those are both on Black Oak Drive. So in the proposed ordinance in front of you this evening, there are amendments to the zoning standards. They would require approval of a conditional use permit by the Planning Commission for a business to have a delivery office that could deliver both or one of medicinal and adult use cannabis. So they would still need to get approval from the Planning Commission. The ordinance would continue to prohibit other commercial cannabis activities, storefront retail, as we mentioned, cultivation, testing, distribution, et cetera. The proposed amendments would eliminate the proposed numerical cap on the number of non-storefront retailers. These are offices. These are businesses that can operate throughout California. We do not anticipate a flood of new applications, and they do create an artificial market for those permits. So staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that we eliminate and do not include a cap on the number of non-storefront retailers. The zoning amendments also would limit the amount of on-site signage that can be be applied to a business that is a delivery office. These are not offices where customers should be coming, and there's really no need for significant signage. Finally, the zoning amendments extend the 600-foot separation requirement that is already required of child-serving businesses or entities, facilities. So schools and daycares, cannabis businesses already have to stay at least 600 feet away from those, but the zoning amendments would require a 600-foot separation from public parks as well. You can see that would include the immediate downtown, around Downtown Park, and then out at Barney Schwartz, there's some C3 zoning that's right across the street, and those sites would not be eligible for cannabis businesses because of how close they are to the park. So what we're bringing to you this evening is a full cannabis regulatory regulatory framework that includes more than just what we have done in the past. So in the past, medicinal cannabis delivery offices have been required to get a conditional use permit, but going forward, staff and the Planning Commission are recommending that a business also be required to acquire a cannabis regulatory permit. We'll dig into what exactly that is. And finally, they also need a business license, and that is the truth. That is the case today, but it would continue. So three approvals from the city in order to operate a cannabis business in Paso Robles. So jumping into the conditional use permit, as I mentioned, this has been a requirement for cannabis businesses in the past, but we should understand exactly what a conditional use permit is. So a conditional use permit is a land use entitlement. It does run with the land. It's not specific to any specific any operator, and so that has been a gap in our oversight. It is a one-time approval unless it's revoked, and revocation is complicated. It requires public hearings, and there are a lot of vested rights that come into play. And so because of the types of issues that the conditional use permit addresses, in the past we've had a gap in oversight that we are looking to fill with the second permit that would be required, which is a cannabis regulatory permit. In order to require this permit, you do need to adopt a new proposed Chapter 5.55 that is included in the draft ordinance. A cannabis regulatory permit would be specific to an operator, so we would really dig in and understand exactly who it is that's operating a cannabis business in our city. It does allow for ongoing and proactive monitoring. In the past, we really have had more reactive reactive oversight. This would allow for annual renewal of a permit, so we would have at a minimum an annual touch on each cannabis business. I will mention that the Planning Commission did recommend cannabis regulatory permits be be renewed every 2 years. Staff is continuing to recommend that the permits be renewed every year for multiple reasons. The first is because the intent of the regulatory permit is to have more frequent touches, more frequent contact with these businesses. And so every 2 years, in staff's opinion, is too far between those checks. In addition, we have found that when we have permits that run with different time limits, it is confusing to the applicants. For instance, the short-term rental permits are valid for 3 years, whereas each short-term rental permit holder has to renew their business license on an annual basis. Every year, it causes confusion. What permit am I renewing? So staff is recommending both for better oversight, but also for clarity with just when permits are due, that the annual renewal the renewals happen on an annual basis. The cannabis regulatory permit also includes operational standards, and we'll jump in a couple slides to see what types of things are addressed in the regulatory permit. It is simpler to revoke a regulatory permit. It doesn't require public hearing. It just requires violations of those operational standards. We have learned that these regulatory permits are best practice for the other cities and municipalities in San Luis Obispo County, Grover Beach, San Luis Obispo, Morro Bay, who all allow more cannabis businesses, do require a cannabis regulatory permit that is renewed on an annual basis. The final approval from the city that a cannabis business would need is their business license tax certificate. As a reminder, these are not regulatory. They don't determine where a business can locate. It just allows you to pay your business license taxes and your cannabis business taxes. So the Chapter 5.55, the recommended standards for the cannabis regulatory permit include, a lot of items that need to be included if an applicant would like to receive a cannabis regulatory permit. It would require disclosure of all the parties with a financial interest, background checks on the employees and those folks who are going to be operating cannabis businesses in our community. They would have to let us know the license types that they'll have from the Department of Cannabis Control, and then there'll be some additional security plans, hours of operation, training plans, and so forth. So there'll be a lot of items that will need to be provided to the city to get one of these permits. As I mentioned, staff is recommending annual renewal. At that time, the police department with some additional assistance would be looking at the security plans, how the business is operating. There would be new background checks. We would make sure that the owners are still the same folks that they were a year ago. We would audit their inventory tracking. There would be a physical inspection of the premises as well by the city on an annual basis. So here, as I mentioned, there are some of the operational requirements. I will mention that most of these are state requirements as well. They are in the state code for cannabis businesses. Some of the differences for the local businesses are that the drivers are going to be required to wear visible company-issued ID. There is sometimes confusion when a police officer pulls over a car whether or not the person should, is authorized to carry cannabis in the, more than just an amount that you would expect to be for sale. So those IDs would help to make those stops a little bit clearer. We do, and the city require customer pre-registration, and the drivers are required to carry the delivery manifest. So that's a refinement on state law as well. So you can see here the types of operational requirements, security requirements, contact information to the city, letting the city know, who's delivering cannabis in our community would be required. We did have a question at Planning Commission regarding if folks are coming from outside the city and they are delivering cannabis into our neighborhoods, what standards that are included in the ordinance would apply to those businesses. And so we worked with BBK and the city attorney's office to identify those in the ordinance. So a business that is not located in Paso Robles would also need to have a business license, tax certificate, would need to pay their cannabis business taxes. They have to have state licensing. They are limited to the hours of delivery that the local businesses would be limited to. They would also have to carry the delivery manifest. They can't have signage, and the driver would continue to need to wear the company-issued ID. So that is the end of the slides that really dig into what the ordinance states. Catherine Piatti, the finance manager, is going to come and explain some of the staff's recommendations for how we administer this program. It is a program that spans multiple departments. The community development department, the police department, and the finance department all have roles to play. And so Catherine is going to come up and explain those practical parts of how we intend to administer the program.
Great. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Katie. Good evening, Mayor Hammond and council members. As Katie mentioned, I am Catherine Piatti, the finance manager for the city. And now that we've gone through the framework of the regulatory permit as well as the various compliance components of the permit process, I'd like to walk you through the options that City Council has to consider regarding the administration of the program as well as the associated fees that come along with the work involved. So when looking at the depth and the regulatory nature of this permit, there were 3 available options for staff to evaluate. The first option, being option A, is a hybrid service delivery model where the city retains the core administrative and customer service functions of the permitting process while engaging with a specialized consultant for the technical and compliance related aspects. The second option, option B, is a fully in-house model where all the program functions would be performed by city staff. And then the third option, option C, is a fully outsourced delivery model where the permitting program would be entirely handled by a third-party consultant. And I'll dive into the details on each option here in the next couple of slides, but first I do want to mention that the proposed fees for each of the options that you're going to see this evening were developed by looking at the estimated level of effort required for each of the functions and whether that included city staff time or those third-party consultant costs. Additionally, the fees that we are proposing this evening are targeted to meet 100% cost recovery for the services that we will be providing, as the cannabis business that would be applying for the regulatory permit is the sole beneficiary of those services as opposed to the public. All right. So diving into option A, this slide shows the service responsibilities for both city staff as well as the consultant in our hybrid delivery model. As I mentioned, this model would allow the city to remain the primary contact for the applicants and the sole administrative portion of the program. That would include options such as the application intake, administration, permit coordination with the applicant, as well as working with the consultant on a various amount of functions as well. This model allows the city to maintain and provide a consistent customer experience to our applicants, and equally important, maintain local oversight over the whole permit process. The specialized consultant would supplement city staff with the technical cannabis expertise, and that would include work such as our site evaluations, our annual and pre-permit compliance audits and inspections, as well as technical review of ongoing regulatory compliance. The city currently does not have staff that are dedicated or trained for this level of expertise, and creating that level of expertise that the consultant will be providing in-house would require either additional or dedicated staffing, initial or ongoing training, as well as keeping up with all the regulatory changes that come along with the cannabis industry. So engaging with that consultant will allow the city to have an up-to-date industry expert at our fingertips throughout this process. Additionally, given the anticipated permit volume, staff is not recommending doing this in-house based on the fact that it wouldn't be an efficient use of city resources to maintain and build that expertise within current city staff. So as you can see at the bottom of this slide, option A proposes fees that include an initial application fee of $5,500, an annual renewal fee of $4,600, and a triennial financial audit fee of $11,000. And I'll go into detail on that triennial financial audit fee in a few slides later. Moving on to option B, the fully in-house service delivery model. As you can see, it's just as the name says. As you can see on the table, all of those functions that we talked about in option A are now solely handled by city staff. Now, the benefit of this approach is that the city would have complete internal control over the entire process, the technical and the administrative side. However, with that comes additional costs. As I mentioned before, the city would need to either dedicate or hire additional staff and provide that initial and ongoing training, as well as maintain that sufficient staffing for the capacity to accommodate fluctuations in application activity. That means the city would continue to incur staffing and training costs even when periods of application activity are relatively low. So similar to option A, the proposed fees for option B include an initial application fee of $7,900, an annual renewal fee of $6,700, and a triennial audit fee of $12,000. So one thing I do want to note on the proposed fees for option B is the proposed fees that are included there include the staff time to perform the functions listed in this table. They do not currently include any additional costs associated with hiring staff or providing that ongoing training. So should council direct staff to proceed with option B, there would need to be some additional analysis done to include those costs, which will significantly increase the proposed cost for option B. All right, and last but not least, option C is our fully outsourced delivery model, which would entail a third-party consultant handling the entire process. And while this model would certainly allow for that subject matter expertise that the consultant could provide, staff ultimately deemed this option not viable due to the fact that there are several functions within this whole permitting process that require direct city involvement. And some of those items include the integration with current permitting processes and approval processes processes that would have to go in coordination with this permit, interdepartment coordination, public accountability, and ultimately retaining that final permitting authority on the decision-making. Also, based on the fact that a third-party consultant cannot provide all the services from start to finish, there was no potential cost information available to be able to calculate proposed fees for this option. In addition to our internal evaluation, we also reviewed what our neighboring jurisdictions are charging for comparable regulatory services relating to cannabis. So on this slide, you are going to see our neighboring jurisdictions who have established fees and programs for cannabis regulatory services, as well as our proposed fees for option A, which is staff's recommendation. It's important to note, while all of these fees on this slide are for cannabis-related businesses, most of the neighboring jurisdictions listed allow storefront retail or dispensaries, so their fees are responsive for that activity, whereas our proposed fees for option A simply are for non-storefront delivery cannabis businesses. So while we might not be comparing apples to apples exactly, you'll see that our proposed fees do reflect the difference in potential business activity. So as you can see on this screen, initial application fees for the other jurisdictions ranged anywhere from $10,000 to $27,000, compared to our proposed initial application fee of $5,500. Additionally, annual renewal fees ranged anywhere from $10,000 to $54,000, compared to our proposed annual renewal fee of $4,600. And here's where I'd like to highlight the proposed financial audit fee. So staff is recommending that the required triennial financial audit fee be listed and charged as a separate fee and charged when the audit actually occurs, rather than building the cost into either our initial application or our annual renewal fee. So some of our neighboring jurisdictions took a different approach and actually incorporate that periodic audit cost into their application, initial application, or their annual renewal fees, which also is part of the reason you'll see a gap between their fees and our proposed fees. Also, I wanted to point out that most of our neighboring jurisdictions do require an annual financial audit, whereas staff is recommending, as of now, a triennial, so an audit every 3 years for our cannabis businesses. And this is partially due to the flexibility that's within the regulatory permit framework that allows us to request access to financial records as needed, and due to the fact that our cannabis business taxes are currently fairly low. So should the council direct staff to perform financial audits on a more frequent basis, the proposed fee would still remain the same. It would just be applicable more often. And there would be updates needed to our regulatory permit language. And then one more reminder on that is that these proposed fees are representative of the costs associated with non-storefront retail delivery businesses only. And should storefront retail businesses be considered at a later date, a new evaluation of the costs involved with that, as well as the proposed fees, would need to be done at that time due to the varying differences between the business types. All right. In addition to our initial application, renewal, and audit fee, staff is proposing 2 additional administrative fees, a fee for appeals and revocation, as well as a permit transfer request fee. These are simply administrative fees that would only apply if the associated action occurs. And for the proposed fee, we are recommending that the appeals and revocation fee be based on actual time and materials needed to process the appeal or revocation. And then with the permit transfer request fee, that is essentially going to be treated as a new application. It's going to go through the same processes, and so whichever option council recommends this evening, the fee for that permit transfer request will be proposed to be set at the same as the initial application fee. Additionally, the fees listed down below under existing services and fees are services and fees that are already in place within the city that a cannabis business applying for a regulatory permit would most likely be subject to as well. And those are things such as the conditional use permit that Katie went over, building permits if TIs or tenant improvements are needed on building spaces, as well as the business license, tax certificate, and cannabis business tax. And so that's just for a transparency purpose for our applicants as well as council to know that it's not just a one-stop shop for the regulatory permit. There will be other fees that apply. And then the last topic I wanted to touch on is just regarding any potential financial implications associated with the regulatory permit or as the process as a whole. And as I mentioned before, the proposed fees are targeting full cost recovery, so they're not generating any revenue. However, there is potential for some broader economic and fiscal considerations associated with allowing those non-storefront retail delivery businesses to establish a physical location within the city. And some of those impacts could include new business attraction, which could carry potential economic-related sales tax or job opportunities, as well as we could see a potential for an increase on our cannabis business tax revenue. But for now, those economic factors are unknown, so we are simply focusing on our cost revenue neutrality at this point. And so at this point, I'm going to pass the presentation back to Katie.
So the action proposed for you this evening is exempt from CEQA. It is not considered a project because it doesn't have the potential to result in direct physical change to the environment. So part of the ordinance is making that determination that the project is exempt. The council has options. The first would be to take no action if you would not like to adopt the proposed ordinance. That would leave our current cannabis regulations in place, which would allow only delivery offices of medical cannabis. Your second option would be to allow non-storefront retail of both adult use and medical cannabis with an annual renewal of a cannabis regulatory permit. And the third option would be to provide alternative direction, which might include making amendments to the ordinance or, if you have different intents for the frequency of the annual, of the audits or so forth. So option 2 is staff's recommendation, and in order to adopt this program, there are 3 actions that staff is seeking today. The first would be to adopt a resolution to rescind the resolution from 2022 that names the businesses allowed to operate as adult use cannabis businesses, and also would eliminate the numerical limit on cannabis businesses that can operate in the city. The second action you should take is to introduce for first reading by title only an ordinance that would make amendments to Title 5. It would add Chapter 5.55 to establish cannabis regulatory permits. There would be amendments to Title 21, which is the zoning ordinance, and then also a small amendment to the Uptown Town Center specific plan. The Riverside Corridor zoning district is in that plan, and so we would like to add a line item to the land use table that shows that cannabis non-storefront retail is allowed there. Finally, we are asking that you direct us to schedule a future public hearing for your consideration of a fee structure, the option A, the hybrid services delivery model. So that is staff's recommendation for this evening. I know there are folks in the audience who are very interested in the results of your vote this evening, and so for their knowledge, the next steps after this evening, should the council adopt or introduce for first reading the ordinance would have to come back to council for a second reading. That would occur, we are projecting that to occur on September 1. The council would also need to adopt fees. We are projecting that would occur on September 15th. The ordinance would become effective 30 days after the second reading, which would put us forward to October 1, which would be the day that the city intends to accept applications for conditional use permits, conditional use permit amendments, and permits for the cannabis regulatory permit. So October 1 would be the most optimistic date when we'll be able to accept those applications. And that does conclude staff's report. I think we've got the fee comparison there, should you like to discuss that.
Thank you, Katie. We'll start with questions only from council.
Question.
Pro Tem Gregory.
Katie, could you go back to page 23, two slides back? 23, one forward. There we go. So item number 3 would be to create a public hearing or everybody can come. We just talk about that subject, not during a city council meeting, so there'd be a separate meeting.
No, just like we're having a public hearing this evening, this event. So we are targeting the September 15th. It's a normal council meeting we didn't know what fees you would, which option you would approve. So we need to come back with a fully noticed hearing to adopt the fees.
Okay, could you go to slide 24, please? So as a potential operator, if this were to be approved, they could start taking applications on October 1st. And what do you see as a time frame for a process for an adequate or a well-qualified applicant to succeed?
Yeah, as we saw earlier in the slides, there are several approvals that are required. The conditional use permit, it's always hard to make an estimate, but we would estimate 3 to 6 months for the conditional use permit. It's likely to take the longest of all the applications. I don't know, Catherine, if we have an estimate for how long the cannabis regulatory permit approval would take, but we do anticipate it will be less than the conditional use permit.
Okay. Oh.
Answer.
Yeah, so the idea is that all 3 permits or licenses will all be issued at the same time. And so even if the regulatory permit pieces are ready to go, they will kind of sit in a holding pattern until that CUP or any of the building permits or things like that need to be completed as well. So they're all kind of flowing together.
Okay, well, I've got you up there. So you were able to reach out to San Luis, Morro Bay, and Grover Beach to see how they set up their fees? And did you do the enforcement part, or that was the police department?
The what part?
To reach out for the enforcement part, or how you administer it?
That would be PD.
Okay, thank you.
Commander Lear, do you want to answer that one?
And I'm sorry, what was the question with the enforcement part?
So you reached out to all the other departments that are dealing with this?
We did, and from what we saw is all of them are being outsourced with the company HDL, who is basically the expert with the cannabis laws. The police department has the capability of overseeing some of the regular required things in the ordinance, but the state laws are changing. It's about 50 pages. And their recommendation to us was, hey, utilize this company instead of creating a whole specialized unit within the PD, and they lean on that company.
Very good. Thank you. Those are my questions.
And to be clear, HDL is who we're planning on using as a consultant to get things done, correct? We didn't really mention them, but that is the expert in the area?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Ricky. Councilman Belch.
Thank you. So 2 questions. While we're on HDL, I anticipate once the next steps are approved tonight, we go through the next steps, you're going to have quite a few applicants. HDL will be able to scale up, take care of all those applicants simultaneously, and then the applicants will drop off after that to very, very few, if any. So we've already discussed that possibility with them, and it'll still take 5 to 6 months, as we discussed this morning. So that's just the way it is, right?
Yes, they will be able to work within our timelines,
Right.
and we will make sure there's coordination between the departments that are working on the different various pieces of the approval process, that we're looped in to let them know what we're looking at on a timeline for this conditional use permit, so that way they can adjust their workflow to make sure they accommodate it as well.
And our planning department with the conditional use permit, same thing. They'll be able to handle the influx.
Yes, we're not anticipating more than we can handle.
Okay.
Correct.
And then one other thing that I thought about after the meeting this morning, it seemed to me, I read somewhere along the way that, and I'm not sure if this was on a state level or other municipalities, but for initial startups, somebody who's never been in this business before are required to put up a deposit, and that deposit is refunded after they've been in business for whether it's 3 years, 5 years. Have we considered doing any of that?
No, that is not considered in this ordinance or in our proposed fees.
Is that something that is allowed within the framework of California? Is that something, it actually was triggered because of what happens if a business goes out of business and they just disappear in the dead of night? Is there anything that, if we haven't collected their taxes, for example?
So we have not explored that option with our consultant. They have not provided us any recommendations on that piece of it as of now. The idea with the ordinance language the way it is it allows us flexibility. If we see writing on the wall that we are concerned about business potentially going out of business or things like that, we have the ability to ask for information and request access to their books before the triennial financial audit. Or if we start to see issues on the cannabis business tax reporting, maybe they're missing their quarterly payments or they're not renewing their business license, that could be cause to then loop in the regulatory permit team and say, hey, I think we need to look into this a little bit more. We've got some flexibility based on what's in that permit.
Would that have to be applied equally to everybody across the line, or do you think that can be applied on a case-by-case basis? How do you see that panning out?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to that one, at least on the financial side, if there's a
I
enforcement
don't want to
side,
hold
but-
up, I'm bringing this question very late to the table. I get that, but maybe circle back with HDL and
Sure.
come back to us.
I think the benefit of having the consultant and being able to enlist them for additional difficult compliance items will also allow the city to kind of remove themselves as far as targeting a business or things like that. The consultant's going to take a third-party approach and be able to provide some recommendations to the
Great.
city as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council on this side? I did have a question, and that had to do with that every 3-year financial audit. We mentioned that in our staff briefing here, that other municipalities also do the same thing, which we would require. Is that data that would be probably collected there still admissible or usable in our administration of their permit here, or is it something that they have to do over again, you see? In other words, a cost. You might mention, too, that these audits are, what, $10,000, $11,000 every time they do them, every year for other cities. We're recommending to do it every 3 years.
Yes.
Okay.
So as far as sharing information between cities, the financial information regarding businesses tends to be proprietary and isn't shared between agencies like that, so it would be a new audit on our side. There is the potential to, if a business is already having audited financials done, council could direct staff to maybe incorporate some avenue of where they provide us information and we review that information in comparison to doing a full financial audit. But the financial audits are much broader than just reviewing taxes or tax returns. The consultant will actually go into the business and make sure labeling is up to code and compliance, that then is tying back to the receipts, that then is tying back to the business taxes. So they do work on site with those businesses as well. And then one of the services that they provide at no additional cost, it's all part of that audit fee, is if they see things that maybe the business isn't aware that they're doing wrong, they will help coach them to correct it and make it correct going forward.
Very good. All right, thank you, Catherine. Any questions here, Chris? Okay. We'll open it up then to public real quick, and staff, if you can stand by, let's see what happens. Dale, welcome.
Dale Guston, I have no opinion on whether cannabis is good or bad. I've talked to many people that say it's relieved their pain. So there's got to be some good to it. However, there is 2 types of cannabis. There's hallucinating and non-hallucinating forms of cannabis, or that chemical. And both can be sold at these facilities. And I have a concern. I didn't understand if employees were required to have a background check or not. But it seems to me anybody selling a hallucinating drug should be required to have a background check. It's just too risky without. I know even when I applied to go to work for the post office, I had to have a background check. Certainly ought to be one for one like this. And the other question I do have is liability. If a person purchases the maximum amount of hallucinating drug and then indulges in too much and gets in a car and gets in an accident, are they going to be covered on liability?
Okay, thank you. We'll get those answers. Thank you. Welcome, Megan. Yeah.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Megan Souza, and I'm the owner-operator of a local cannabis retail company, Megan's Organic Market. And my business, Megan's Organic Market, we already do offer delivery, adult use cannabis delivery to the city of Paso Robles from our San Luis Obispo location. And I'm very eager to be able to deliver from within Paso to our North County customers to make it a much faster, smoother process. As an existing cannabis operator, I'm very accustomed to regulation, including background checks, inspections, security requirements, permitting, financial audits, and fees. And I fully understand the city's desire to have the appropriate safeguards in place, and am very comfortable with meeting those requirements. Cannabis is already being delivered in Paso Robles to Paso residents, and allowing licensed operators to establish a local presence will give the city greater oversight and ultimately generate more local tax revenue, as residents are much more likely to opt for speedy home delivery rather than driving to San Luis Obispo or Morro Bay to visit the storefront dispensaries there. So thank you so much for your time and consideration. We will be submitting our application October 1st. Thank you so much.
Megan. we have a
Megan?
question. Megan?
Can we
you have
ask
a
you a question? So as an operator, do you think we're being not only fair, but complete in our process for doing this?
Yes, I think that staff has put together a very thorough, complete process here that is very similar to what we see in other jurisdictions.
Very good. Thank you very much for being here.
Anyone else? Do we have anyone online?
No, sir.
Very well. We'll bring it back then to council for discussion, questions, direction. I had one question, and it has to do with maybe Warren, you could answer this. The CUP, if CUPs are tied to the actual property address. So if the same address has several operators at that same address, do they have to go through a CUP specifically for them, or can they use that address?
So typically, there's one CUP that covers the whole property. That's the case with the Dubs property, and that CUP allows 3 different operators to operate out of that building. So that would likely just be amended to also allow the recreational marijuana or cannabis delivery out of that building. So we see that process being fairly straightforward, but the CUP runs with the land, covers the whole property.
So in other words, the 6 months timeframe for acquiring a CUP may be shorter if it's at the same location?
Yeah, I think the 6 months would be for a brand-new CUP. For that one, it will be probably closer to the 90-day window.
Very good. That's what I thought. Thank you. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on this, but before I do, I'd like to say a few things, if I may.
Well, I was going to have actually our legal counsel,
okay.
Elizabeth Hull, kind of go over our options here, just so
Okay,
we're all
that's
clear,
fine.
and then
Okay.
let's make a comment on that.
I'd be happy to do
So,
that. Thank you.
Elizabeth, can you kind of tell us what we have to go through here? There's 3 different options, but 2A, B, C, D.
Sure. So I'm sure Katie and we have Jill Tremblay online, who is your cannabis attorney, will correct me if I mess anything up. But the first thing that we really need to happen is the adopting the resolution rescinding 22-144. As you recall, 22-144 was the one we did a number of years ago that named the 3 operators, and that's just not really viable and not working. So that's really the first and most important thing, is rescinding Resolution 22-144. The next item is introducing the new ordinance, and this new ordinance, and A, B, C, and D, all are encompassed in this one ordinance. And the first thing is it creates your regulatory permit. That's in section 5.55. And then subsequently in the same ordinance, we're going to do some cleanup changes to the table at 21-32-1, part of chapter 21-60, and the table at 5.3-1. And those are just some cleanup items scattered throughout the municipal code that we need to freshen to reflect what we're doing in 5.55. So they're all kind of interrelated. And if you just introduce the first reading, you're going to do all A, B, C, and D at the same time. And then the last thing, of course, is we're looking for some direction from the council on sort of which fee process do you want to use. And staff is recommending the hybrid process, option B, which is the one that Catherine Piatti sort of explained for you. And oh, I'm sorry, option A. I saw option B. Option A, my bad. That's the staff recommended one. And that gives us sort of the consultant process to help us through the administration.
So we'll take that one separately. I think it might be good, Pro Tem Gregory, if you're going to be making the motions, whatever, we can take them separately. But if you want to make your comment first and then take.
Yeah, sure. I want to make the comment that this has been a long time coming, but I want to first of all thank staff, and I never want to cross hairs with our finance manager over there because she is so thorough. But I just want to say what a thorough job this is. But I think it's really important, if we're going to have an ordinance for this subject, which can be controversial, that we have people that are reliable and they have staff that are trained, and the police department has the ability to regulate, and our own staff has the ability to regulate what's going on. And I think they've done a really good job. I like that you've compared all the regulations and with the other cities. So I think it's about time that we move forward on this so that we can get the step forward. And most importantly to me is to stop the proliferation of people coming into our city and delivering cannabis without paying the city for that. And more importantly, for public safety. You know, you have these outside operators that are coming in here, and I'm sorry, I don't believe they know it. They're not careful enough to take care of our citizens. So I like this for several reasons, but mostly control and the opportunity to get more funding. So, and with that, I'm ready to make a motion.
Let's go ahead and open up with a comment. Anyone else on council want to add comments to what we're doing here?
Yeah, I was going to add a comment, and that was, these businesses now are going to be handling a lot more product than they were before. That is going to be a tremendous amount of inventory. And I was privileged, as a matter of education, to tour a facility, I think it was the one in Grover Beach, a number of years ago. And when I saw how they operate and how they control that, I was amazed. I wish my bank had as much security as they have, because it doesn't. My money isn't nearly as safe as their products are. It's amazing what they do. So their expense in setting up is huge. You have no idea unless you try to investigate and get into that business. It's unbelievable, the cost of just setting up that protection. So more power to them if they can do it.
Councilman Bausch.
I just want to say thank you to staff for meeting with us, for answering an awful lot of questions. I'd like to thank the public for their comments. I've seen an awful lot of evolution from 10 years ago when I was on school board, and there was just absolute refusal, no to pot absolute no marijuana in Paso Robles. The amount of phone calls and emails and meetings then versus what has evolved today is very surprising to me. I think there's a tolerance today, an acceptance of the benefit of what medical cannabis does, of what recreational cannabis can do. But I think there's a warning that has to go along with that. We have to be responsible for our youth. We have to be very careful how if it is accessible, we know it's being delivered to Paso Robles homes now. I think taking better care to make our local operators be responsible, being good partners with our local law enforcement. I think those are good, responsible steps. Will there be a benefit tax-wise? I believe there will be. I don't think we should have an over expectation of huge amounts of revenue, but I think there will be some revenue, a beneficial revenue. So I think it's a good step to take with all of the precautions that we put into place. I hope it works out well for all of us.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Chris Beal.
Great. I just wanted to echo what's been said. I think the work that's been done here between the different departments has been excellent to work in the system in place to make sure that we have assurances around the issues that we're concerned about, and that you have really a process to enforce and inspect and oversee how this rolls out. I know it's a lot of work for who knows what's going to happen in terms of the application process, but congratulations to the whole team for getting this together.
And for me, my comment essentially is that I've never really agreed with recreational use, but this is California and it is law, you can do it. But what I really was wanting to do here is make our particular carrier or supplier of cannabis in our city on a level playing field, because they have been a disadvantage over the years because there's other people coming in that can deliver recreational wherein they cannot. So I think at that point, again, it's certainly a good business point here to make sure that they're able to compete, with others. And one thing I do like about one of our item 3 we're going to talk about here is the finance fees. We're going to be more competitive too than others. So that's going to be a plus for our particular folks. So with that, Councilman Gregory, if you want to make a motion on, we'll start with item 1.
I will make one more comment
Sure.
prior to that. I am not in favor of the use of cannabis for myself, but I care about our community, and it can be an introductory drug. But if we don't do something to help regulate it and professionalize it, I think we're kicking the can down the road. So I think this is a great way to do it and get a community partner that will work with us, however many of those are. But the professionalism is mandatory in my point, because I want the safety for our citizens. So with that, I'll go ahead.
Steve?
Yeah.
Are you surprised with how many seniors are using cannabis?
No, I'm okay with it. I just think
You're
it's
okay
not-
with it, okay, that's a good way to
it's not
put
mine,
it.
It's myself.
Yeah.
I'm one senior that doesn't.
For medical medicinal use, no problem at all. Okay.
I have my reasons,
Yeah.
whatever, it's okay. But I think it's important I do love the medical marijuana use, and if it's necessary for recreational for seniors, it's fine. And this gives us the ability to move forward. So with that,
Item
first
1.
we'll move to adopt a resolution rescinding Resolution 22144, which would eliminate the numerical limit on the number of cannabis businesses permitted to operate in the city.
Second.
Okay, motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Discussion? Call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes
Okay,
unanimously.
number 2, I'd like to move that we introduce for first reading by title only an ordinance to allow non-storefront retail cannabis businesses in the Riverside Corridor and commercial light industrial C3 zoning districts to establish a cannabis regulatory permit by A, adding Paso Robles Municipal Code, Chapter 5.55 for cannabis regulatory permit, B, amending the Paso Robles Municipal Code, Table 21.32-1 zoning district use regulations, C, amending the Paso Robles Municipal Code, Chapter 21.60 cannabis, and D, amending the Uptown Town Center Plan, Table 5.3-1, allowed land uses and permit requirements.
Second.
So motion by Gregory, second by Beal. Discussion? Call for the question then.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, so number 3 is not really a motion, but,
No, we can discuss that
okay.
if you
And
want.
then option, I'd like to move that we adopt or accept option A for the staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Gregory, second by Beal. Discussion on that. Okay, we'll call for the question.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. Thank
And
you.
then the direction for staff, that's already assumed.
Yeah,
correct?
that's already in the motion.
We covered everything,
Yep,
Elizabeth?
got her done.
Okay. All right.
Okay, break, anybody, 5 minutes?
Why don't we take one more and then have a break?
Okay, all right, so let's get on to discussion item number 1, approval of a resolution authorizing certain disclosures and actions in connection with the issuance of and by the San Luis Obispo County Financing Authority for its Nacimiento Water Project Revenue Bond, refunding bonds 2026, Series A. Ryan Cornell, you have that for us.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Ryan Cornell, Administrative Services Director. The city is part of the Nacimiento Waterline Project. And in order for the waterline project to be constructed, this county of San Luis Obispo took out some revenue bonds in order to purchase that. Because the city is a major participant in the water delivery, we have a financial stake in all the activities that the flood control district does. Recently, the county has reached out to some financial individuals, and they think that now is a good time to refinance or refund some of the revenue bonds for the Nacimiento debt. Specifically, the goal is to obviously save money on debt service. So as of June time, we were anticipated to save about $2.8 million in total savings for the remaining parts of the bonds, and that kind of breaks down to about $200,000 per year. Since June time, the markets have changed a little bit, and so we're not seeing as much as a favorable, but we're still looking at annual savings of about $150,000 per year. And so this has a direct correlation to the water fund. So if we don't have to pay as much debt service, the water fund doesn't have to pay as much in expenditures, and those funds stay with the city, and they be used towards either softening any sort of future rate increases or redirecting those funds to another capital project and that sort of thing. At the end of the day, the authority will only refinance the bonds if there's a 3% net present value that's achieved. So if we don't see as much savings, that they won't do it. But right now we're at a kind of a bond market that they think that we can see some significant savings. Because we are a participating agency or a major player in this, it does need city council concurrence for the county to move forward with the refunding of bonds. So with that, Mr. Mayor, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Councilman Belch.
So Ryan, that 150,000, that's the remainder, or that's annual?
So, that would just be the annual average savings.
And that's
In totality, it would be closer to about 2 million over the remaining.
And that's just our portion, or is that for the aggregate?
That's our proportionate share.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, you're good? Okay, thank you, Ryan. We'll go ahead and open up the public. Anyone have an item on this question here? Seeing none. Anyone online?
No, sir.
All right, we'll bring it back then to council for direction and or action on this one.
So I have a question.
Question, go ahead.
So Ryan, since we're one of the major partners, are you involved in the decision with the others on how to, what bond and how all the financing process?
It's actually, I think, more of a math problem. If the savings gets generated enough, then yeah, I think it's a,
So you have a good actuary to figure it out for us?
yes.
Sure, okay. All right, well, I'm in favor of saving funding on this since it's always an ongoing expense, and it sounds like it's an amazing amount, so I move we approve the resolution as authorizing certain disclosures and in actions in connection with the issuance by the SLO County Financing Authority of its Anasi Meadow Water Project revenue refunding bonds, Series 2026A.
Second.
Motion by Gregory, second by Bausch. Discussion? All right, we'll call for the question, Melissa.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Thanks for
Motion
putting in
passes
big
unanimously.
letters, too, it's nice.
Do you think you can do one more?
No, not the next one.
Okay, so you want to recess? Okay, we're going to recess for 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
The rubber band when you need one.
Are we good to go? All right. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. And on our agenda, we have item 2 in discussion, receipt of a report regarding outcome of surplus land act for sale of surplus land at Pioneer Park and direction for future consideration. Angelica, you have that for us.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Angelica Fortin, Community Services Director. Tonight, I'm bringing you an update on the Pioneer Park property located at 1910 Riverside Avenue, and where things stand under the Surplus Land Act referenced to as SLA throughout this report. I'll walk through the background, what's changed, and staff's recommendation, which is to retain the property for now. Thank you. Let's start with the property itself. It's approximately 71,874 square feet, about 1.65 acres, and is currently improved as Pioneer Park. On site today, you'll find restrooms, a small parking lot, and a skate park, all accessed off Riverside Avenue, which the property shares with the adjacent parcel. As a reminder, the remaining portion of the original park property was sold to the state for fairground use in 2024. That includes the basketball court, ball field, and a portion of the parking lot on 19th Street. This is currently being leased back to the city for park use. What we're discussing tonight is what's left of the original parcel, and you can see that outlined in blue. This process was part of the city's broader exploration of moving the 2011 Uptown Plan forward. That plan envisioned expanded museum space on this parcel, which is part of why this site was evaluated in the first place. Back in 2020, AB 1486 amended the Surplus Land Act, and it requires cities to follow a specific process before disposing of surplus public land. On November 18, 2025, Council adopted Resolution 25130 declaring the property non-exempt surplus land and approving the notice of availability, the first required step. Staff sent that notice out, and we received 3 responses from the Housing Authority of San Luis Obispo, known as HASLO, the Pioneer Museum Foundation, and the Fairgrounds. Of those 3, only HASLO proposed building housing on the site, which is what triggers the next stage of the process. The city and HASLO then entered good faith negotiations on a sale price and terms. Those negotiations continued well beyond the statutory 90-day minimum, but ultimately the 2 sides couldn't reach an agreement, and negotiations concluded without a sale. We reported that outcome to the State Department of Housing and Community Development, and on July 3rd of this year, HCD confirmed the city fully complied with the act. That means the city is now legally free to sell, lease, or continue to hold the property. For reference, the property was appraised at a fair market value of $1,690,000. So what's different now? The key thing that has changed since that surplus declaration is that Council has since funded a citywide parks master plan, something we have never undertaken. That process will include a comprehensive community engagement effort to evaluate all of the city's park facilities and future recreational needs, and this property would naturally be part of that conversation. This also directly implements one of your adopted council goals, that's goal number 4, cultural, recreational, and open spaces. So now we have a structured citywide parks planning process coming online that didn't exist when this surplus land process began. That brings us to your options tonight. You can take no action. You can receive and file this report and direct staff to delay any sale decision until the parks master plan is complete, which is staff's recommendation. Or you can direct staff to pursue disposition and engage with the Museum Foundation and/or the Fairgrounds, who've both expressed interest, or you can give staff an alternative direction. Staff is recommending option 2, receive and file this report and direct staff to delay consideration of any sale until the Parks Master Plan process is complete. This would keep this property in the city's inventory as a park asset in the meantime. It lets us evaluate this site within the context of the full park system rather than in isolation. It lets any future decision be shaped by community-identified priorities coming out of the master plan. And importantly, it doesn't forego anything. The city still has the option to sell, lease, or retain the property once that process wraps up. A few fiscal and timing notes. The state's lease on the adjoining parcel expires in March of 2027, meaning that if we do retain the property, we'll need to separate the water and electrical utilities that are currently shared with the adjacent State Fairgrounds owned parcel. The city will continue funding maintenance of the restroom facility and the skate park. The retaining the property does mean foregoing the roughly $1.7 million in potential sale proceeds for now, in exchange for keeping our options open. Lastly, it will preserve park use through the master planning process. It's worth remembering that this is an actively used community asset, not vacant land. On a day-to-day basis, the restrooms, parking lot, and skate park see steady community use. In 2025, the site hosted 8 event reservations. While this number may seem low, it's important to note that most of them were for nonprofit hosted community events like Skating for Hope, who hosts skating classes for children whose families are experiencing cancer. Care for Paws, that provides low-cost and no-cost animal vaccinations, and Day of the Child. And that was a church function. Once a year, the park also hosts a fundraising event. In 2025, that event netted $77,928 in gross profit. That benefits the local scout troops and other youth groups, as well as provides funding for the Recreation Services Scholarship Program. Tonight, we're asking council to receive and file this report and direct staff to delay the sale consideration. In the coming months, the park master planning process will launch with community engagement. Once that plan is complete, staff will evaluate the property within the full park system context. And at a future meeting, staff will come back to council with recommendations on the property's long-term use. The bottom line, this property is fully compliant with the Surplus Land Act and legally available for disposition today. But with the park's master plan now funded, staff believes it makes sense to let that community process play out before deciding the property's future. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Angelica. My first quick question is the parks master plan. What's the timing of that?
So we do have an RFP out now. We expect the responses to that before the end of this month, but it is a 12 to 18-month process. So it's a full year of community engagement once we get started.
Okay, and that's not just this park, it's all our parks.
It would be all parks in the city.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yes. My first question is for Elizabeth. What is the purpose of us going through the Surplus Land Act process? What was the purpose?
Well, initially you were looking at selling the property, and prior to doing that, you needed to comply with this process that had changed within the past few years and become slightly more cumbersome. Now that you have completed it, whether you sell the land now or sell the land later, you don't have to do it again. We have our sort of get out of jail free card, so we'll be able to proceed with the transaction if and when the council decides they want to do that.
Yes. You need a question?
Is there any time frame to how long that lasts?
There is not. We're good to go. We got our pass from HCD,
Yep.
so you can hold on to it. It's not uncommon for cities to go through the process for a whole bunch of properties and then just hold on to them until they're ready to sell it, or they do it one at a time. You can do it any way you want, but once you have that letter, you're good to go.
So my next question, Angela, could you go back to slide number 2? I think it is. Maybe 3, slide number 3. Keep going back. That right there. So I don't understand number 4. The negotiations end, and here's my question. It ended with Haslow or whatever pulling out.
Correct.
But did we negotiate with the other 2 interested parties?
No, we were prohibited by law from negotiating with them because they were not proposing housing.
Until after that process was completed?
Until we got our get out of jail card from HCD.
That's the question I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilman Bausch.
So let's say, for argument's sake, we decide to receive and file until the master plan is complete. Nothing would prevent another party, whether it's the Pioneer Museum Foundation, the Event Center, from approaching the city with an offer, and we could entertain the offer. Or a third entity, or fourth entity, so anybody could come to us. And we would say yes or no if we wanted to entertain.
I think the spirit of, if I may, Mayor and Council, I think the spirit of the motion, the recommendation for you tonight is to put in abeyance any sort of consideration of an offer until the Parks Master Plan is complete.
Would we want to put that into our receive and file? Just wait and not entertain any offers. That's my point.
Yeah, that could be at the direction of the council.
Okay.
Or I get the point with regard to the Parks Master Plan and having that information. But a year and a half to wait for that seems like, do we need to go that long before we really make a decision on, or council direction on what we want to do with it? In other words, if there is an idea that can be agreed on by the board here, then we could direct staff to move that direction before.
Mayor Hammond,
certainly. Yes.
I want to ask that we stop this conversation and let it go to the public first.
Yeah,
Because
well, I'm
it's
asking
not
a question, okay? This is my question to staff. Again, we have the ability to direct staff, other than to go for the Parks Master Plan. We can also go a different direction tonight if we wanted to.
Correct, you can provide an alternative direction.
Exactly right. That's what my point was.
And I'd like to ask, before we get too far afield, the 1.6 appraisal, I have to say, that seems kind of high. I don't know how we arrived at that. There was a couple of properties in that area that were tried to approach that. They didn't sell, they're off the market now. So I don't know, I mean, I can imagine how the appraisal, there's several different ways to come to an appraisal. We know that. But are we stuck on 1.6 as evaluation?
So the appraisal is not a public document, and we can go into closed session in the future if you want to discuss sort of how that happened.
Sure.
That seemed premature until we knew what direction the board wanted to go.
Agreed.
And if we were to put off the sale, of course, we would update the appraisal, depending on, the timing of if you directed us at some point to proceed with a sale.
Yeah, I would like that. It just, like I said, it just seems awfully high.
Okay, other questions? Okay, we'll open up then to the public to have any items on this question. Welcome, Don. Warren, yeah.
Good evening. I first want to say thank you to the council for the work that you do. I sat here for 2 hours and I'm amazed. Governing's hard. And
Don, can you say, Don Ernst, you need to say your name first.
3 minutes. Don Ernst.
There you go.
Let me introduce myself. My name is Don Ernst. I'm a lawyer in San Luis Obispo. I represent the Museum Foundation. My roots are deep here in Paso Robles. I'm a Bearcat. My father was a Bearcat, Gene Ernst. My mother was a Bearcat. My grandfather built Geneseo School, which is now in the museum. My father attended that school. And the jail that's in the museum, that 14-foot item, I can guarantee you that as a kid, that used to be on my dad's property down there where the granary is, and I've served time in that jail. According to my dad, he put me in there to discipline me. So I suspect I'm the only person that's ever been in this council and has served time in that jail. Having said that, my roots are deep. I care about the community, and I care about the museum, and now you know why. If we go back to slide 2, timeline.
Yeah, Don. Yeah.
The slide, the timeline. There's a couple things that they left out.
Yeah. And you only have a few minutes here, Don, so it kind of.
Well, I may ask for two additional minutes. So I want to just because I want to go through this. In 2018, this council voted to sell that property to the Museum Foundation. There was an appraisal. The appraisal was $25,000. In 2018, October 16th, negotiations were entered with the city. 3 times. It was agreed that the property would be sold to the Museum Foundation by the City Council in a unanimous vote in 2019 for $25,000. It was going to be leased back to the city for the park situation at that time. It was confirmed on February 10th, 2019, and again on August 17th, 2021. In fact, there's a 47-page document in your minutes that include a sale contract and a deed. Now, I can say that I think there's a moral and ethical duty to sell it to the Museum Foundation. But I hear everyone here, and I understand the forces at play. I like the idea of parks. I'm totally in favor of the park master plan. I hope the city proceeds with that. But I want a recommendation, and my recommendation is this, that you allow the Museum Foundation a period of time to deal with all the stakeholders. And I'm going to have 5 seconds. I'd request 2 minutes more. I would like to proceed with a meeting, an ad hoc meeting of and I've spoken to the fair. I would like to talk to Ms. Beal, who's in fact, it's her district. I would like to work with the city to figure out that park can be utilized when the museum isn't using that park area. We would like to build a center there to hold meetings, that is open to the public, that there could be a museum edge to it. There would be a barbecue area, an open area that would be available to the park when it's not in use. We could use it for parking when the fair takes place with the fair. I would like to have a meeting of the stakeholders, including the school district, because I think that's where the skate park should eventually go. But it's complicated, and I would request this, that do not put this park parcel, to the end of the 12 or 18-month time period. I would request that we be permitted to come back after a meeting with all the stakeholders and present to the council an opportunity to buy this property for a reasonable value at a reasonable time. And that will include talking to the district, the parks, the fair, and the school. I've spoken to all of those people before this meeting. I've made a couple of calls to you. I would respectfully request that this park area be sold to the museum at some point. But I would request perhaps 5 to 6 months to see if we can't come back with a stakeholder that satisfies everybody, the parks, the fair.
Mr. Ernst, I'm going to have to ask you to stop at this point. You've exceeded the time limit that the council's given you, and it's not fair to the rest of the speakers.
We're hearing you, but...
Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll bring it back to the council for discussion and or action. It's funny, I had the same vision, and I'll say it again, that we've talked about this, that there's a need for community building, like similar to what we're at right now at the Centennial. And I think, somebody with a vision that can design a project that it could be shared personally with the city, the social clubs, all these different groups, the Pioneer Museum, the fairgrounds, just like Don was mentioning. I think there's a way that this can happen. Once we sell this property, the city does not have that anymore. I've just actually had a very strong conversation with our new Rotary District governor out of Ventura, who manages a facility just like I'm envisioning. And I'm going to go down and talk to her about this. It's run by a nonprofit. And again, it's very, very efficient, and it's a low-cost place to be able to have meetings. So that's something I think the council needs to get behind as far as a vision. As of right now, I would like to hear kind of what the rest of council wants to do. I think, again, moving forward with the master plan for the parks is important. We can certainly do that, but we can also be having a parallel conversation at the same time with other possibilities. So I'll open it up for discussion. What do you think?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
As a point of, well, I guess it's parliamentary, and that is the Brown Act says we can't discuss something or make an action. It's on our agenda. Nothing like that is on our agenda.
No, we're not talking, this is, again, a discussion of what we're going to tell staff we want to do, correct? Elizabeth?
Okay, but this is a report to receive and file.
No, there was a direction.
Sorry, I'm fighting with my microphone. I believe that the staff report gave you 3 options. To take no action, receive and file the report, direct staff to pursue disposition of the property, or provide some alternative direction. What I would suggest is if we want to talk about all the possibilities and things, I'll defer to the city manager, but it may be appropriate to continue the item so we can schedule a closed session first to talk about the appraisal and any potential property sales, if that's the direction the
My
council is
recollection, I was on the council at those times. And I believe Mike Ryan was very much involved at that time. And Mike was adamant. He did not want to negotiate. He was very difficult. And that was our problem.
So if I may, those previous transactions that were contemplated with the museum, Mr. Ernst is correct, they were approved. They were never executed by the museum. And so those transactions did not proceed. And then subsequently to that, there was the change in the law that prohibited us from proceeding with them.
That's true.
So it's sort of a clean slate for the council at this point. You've been through the SLA process. You can proceed with staff's recommendation, which is just to hold on to the property and continue to contemplate it as part of your overall parks master plan and figure out what works and what doesn't, and they'll come back to you with recommendations or provide us with other direction.
Pro Tem Gregory?
So I recommend number 4. And the reason why, we can let the Parks and Rec go ahead and get into the study of the master plan. But I think I was around for some of this negotiation and the agreements and the votes. And the intent was always been to try to get the property to the foundation. And that's always been the intent. You now have the fairgrounds and the foundation, and as Don said, there's a lot of players in the market. So I'd like to see us come down to staff direction of what could we do to get to negotiation again. We can continue the study for the master plan for the park, but let's not put them on hold. Let's get this. What's going to happen is this has been going on for 5 years. We went through the Surplus Land Act, and now it's come to fruition. It's not part of the Surplus Land Act. We still have 2 parties that are interested, and we're going to turn a blind eye and put it on hold for 18 months, which is not appropriate. Don mentioned a project as part of this project to build a public facility for people to use along with the museum. It doesn't have to be just a museum. There's a lot of ideas. And I think we're doing ourselves a disservice to our heritage and how powerful and how wonderful this foundation has been. They made mistakes. I'm not going to argue with Elizabeth. The contract's over, whatever, but the intent has always been there. And John, I know what you want, but I think we can get pretty close to what everybody wants, but I don't think we should just shelve the process because we've worked hard on it. The Surplus Land Act was hard. We have an appraisal that may or may not be any good. But if we can get together and talk with everybody, a shorter time period or whatever, Don had an idea of adding all the agencies. But the fairgrounds and our Heritage Foundation for the Pioneer Park, they all want the same thing. They want it to work for them, so it works. It's a great location, and I think we just need to. I'm personally a man of my word when I tell people, yeah, we want that Pioneer Park to have it. And so things failed. They made mistakes, but we made some mistakes ourselves. But I'm not going to say anything about that. But I still think that we should honor it by negotiating and meeting with them. Let the master plan go on, and if this part comes back into it or is part of it, that's fine. But I don't think we should hold the project up for negotiation.
Okay.
That's my personal idea.
Councilman Bausch.
I don't disagree with Councilmember Gregory. I don't disagree with Mr. Ernst, I don't disagree with Angelica 14. I think all of those ideas are great. I think the master plan should go on and include the Pioneer Park. I think the council needs that option to fully discern if keeping it is a good idea. I think developing a concept of a community space, just for lack of a better term, with the event center, with the museum foundation, that might be the best option. We don't know yet, but I think having that discussion, be able to come up with that plan is a good one. I've been part of that fair now for probably 40 years. I like the evolution, and it's come a long way since the early 80s when I started going to the fair. And I like to see that progress, and I see that vision in the Pioneer Museum vision. I think, John, you had a vision of having a community center down there. Those are all great ideas. If there is going to be an ad hoc committee, I too would like to be part of that if there's room for that. I think that's a great discussion space to round table and come up with a consensus of what would be a good space and what would serve all of Paso Robles.
Exactly. One more thing. Councilman Strong. Yeah, and that is, before we had these districts, we represented the whole city. When we represented the whole city, the one thing we acknowledged was that all of the recreation space, or most of it, is all on the east side. There's almost nothing on the west side. This is one of the last little remnant pieces of possible park, other than downtown park, to exist on the west side, to serve those people. And I think that's a very strong consideration in this matter.
Good. Councilman Beal.
So I have very strong opinions about this property, and I have very strong opinions about the need for open space on the west side. A city asset of whatever size on the west side is a non-renewable resource. Once it's gone, it is gone. For the record, I spoke with Mr. Ernst ahead of time. I appreciated his input and learning a lot of the history of this issue. We are here as a result of a series of decisions which we may or may not have been a part of. And one of the things I've learned in the last few years is that I understand the people that I work with, I understand my neighborhood, I understand my street very, very, very well. I might not understand what's going on a mile away with people that have a different education, with people that are a different age or have different jobs. And it's only through talking to people that I learn the value. My son's 33. It's been a while since he's played soccer, right? So, but the lack of open space on the west side. I think all of these ideas are very interesting. The idea of a community center, whatever the case might be. I think this is very important information. And I think the community will inform what the community wants and the community needs. It is a historic neighborhood. That is a historic property. If we had a master parks plan 10 years ago, we might have made a different decision about the other two parcels, because we would have had an overall plan and priority about how to be investing in our open space. So I appreciate, the sense of obligation that people have towards the parties. And I think we have an obligation to the people, right, to get adequate community input so that we can make the appropriate decision with that property when we have all the information. So I would support staff's recommendation.
So I do recall when we were talking with the fairgrounds about the baseball side of the park there, that again, we had a vision, I had a vision too, that we would have a North County Conference Center, someplace where we could have large events that would be city-owned and retained. In other words, that we could program for things like this. And there's nothing like that on North County. So that went away with that property, but again, we still have an opportunity to do maybe a smaller version of something here on that corner that might fit. Again, what I was going to do is throw out a motion here just to see where it might go. Okay?
Can I make one more comment?
Certainly, before you do that.
So Chris Beal mentioned something, and I think it's really important. Maybe Mr. Hewitt can help us with this. We're in the negotiations on a field up at the old school, Georgia Brown, right now, which is going to hugely increase our west side presence for fields and parks. And that's in the process. So that's an important note to make, because as valuable as this park may seem, the field part of that is incredibly important. So I want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So maybe Chris can address that for us.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem. As you recall, a year or more ago, this council had a broad discussion on youth sports fields, and one of the things that came out of that discussion was to take this council to take a policy position, which is in support of finding a way to resurrect, maybe the right word, or recondition and reuse the existing green space at the old Georgia Brown campus as a potential outlet for additional youth sports fields. And so since that time, the city staff has had several meetings with the school district. I can report as of late, there is momentum gaining in terms of seeing a potential partnership through where there may be an opportunity to reopen that green space as youth sports field, in particular soccer fields. We're still working out those details, and there's still more work to be done. I think that would be a relatively short agreement to start. We're not still sure what the district's long-term plans are for the site, but I can tell you that the discussion around additional sports fields down there is gaining momentum. If everything stays on track, I would expect something to be coming before this council before the end of the year, if not sooner, frankly.
I think I am also hopeful about these conversations. I think it's a tremendous opportunity. The fact and that becomes part of the inventory. That becomes part of the puzzle that you're putting together when you're assessing kind of the needs and the assets and where they are and access. I still, I think that is independent. You wouldn't sell something off if you didn't inventory it first. So my argument is to inventory, and then you sort of make a decision of where you are.
If I could just add, we're also going to be losing Pioneer Field next year. The field on 36th Street would be temporary and will help us as we experience the loss of those fields.
Okay, thank you, Anna. All right, let me make a stab at a motion here and see where it goes. First, basically, receive and file this report. Next is to direct staff to delay sale of the real property. And then direct staff to meet with interested parties, meaning Pioneer Museum or another party, anybody else that would like to throw a vision out on what could be done with that property, to discuss, their thoughts and how that could be used. And staff then would bring back further information for council to understand what the proposal is. I'm assuming, that basically right there is my motion, okay? And so leave it at that, and if they can get a second, or we can move forward on discussion on that. So.
A second to the friendly amendment.
Sure.
The negotiation should be with somebody with an eye toward preserving the cultural significance of the site. Not sure how to word that. But
Well, I think what you're saying is,
preserve it with the cultural heritage
okay.
intent.
What I'm asking basically is just to receive and file any proposal from anyone, and then staff would discern the information and bring it back to council. You see, we don't know what their proposal would be or whether we would accept it or not, right? So,
Well, bear in mind, like the Museum Foundation, that's a cultural impact. Your idea of having a community center, that would be a cultural impact. Having and not to pick on 7-Eleven or Southland Corporation, having a 7-Eleven there. We don't need a 7-Eleven there.
I see what you're trying to do is kind of narrow the scope
Yeah.
of what we would accept as a proposal.
Right.
Is that kind of what I'm
Yes.
hearing? Right.
But
I can agree with
my
that.
question is, does this motion exclude it from the Parks Master Plan?
No, let
Moving along
me
in
put that in
parallel.
there too. Let me amend my motion. I did want to move forward with the Parks Master Plan. I think that's important. Got to do that. So that is also going to move forward. But in the interim, we could also entertain, like if, in other words, the museum wants to bring a proposal, they're going to take time to bring that thought together and give it to staff so that they can bring it back to us for discussion. So same way with anybody else who might have an idea here, what they might want to see. You know, I think the point though is we don't want to sell it. We're going to retain it. We're going to move forward with the Parks Master Plan. Okay, get that started. But then in the interim, parallel, I mean, if this Parks Master Plan is going to take 18 months, we certainly have time to also listen and discuss, you know, about other things. So that's why I'm actually having the door cracked open for anybody who wants, like, for instance, at Pioneer Museum, want to bring a proposal for staff to review. I think we should do that.
So can I take a
Elizabeth?
shot at this? So
Yes.
I think the motion is to follow staff's recommendation and receive and file this report, proceed with the Parks Master Plan, and delay a sale at this point.
Delay the sale, but also
And
entertain.
Let me finish.
Okay.
I want to make sure
All right,
we're all
okay.
on the same page. So that's the first part of the motion. Additionally, your motion would be direct staff to come back to you with any vetted proposals that they receive related to Pioneer Park, even if it is during this process of completing the Parks Master Plan.
Correct. Is that,
My comment is, the word delay, what does that mean?
We are not currently going to sell, the
Yeah.
property is not going to be listed for sale at this point in time. However, the second part of his motion is that if a proposal is received by staff, they would vet it and bring it back to you, which we would do in closed session, because we don't have parameters from the council related to the appraisal, sale terms, what you would or would not consider. But we're not out actively advertising the property during the park
Right.
master plan process.
So I'm okay with that as long as it's not tied to the master plan completion.
no.
I don't believe that was the intent of the motion. The motion is to receive and file the report from staff. They're going to proceed with the park master plan, which they're doing anyway. That's not before you this evening either way. That's funded and moving forward. However, if staff were to receive a vetted proposal, they would go through that, and then we would schedule it for closed session at some point and bring it back to you.
Regarding my concern about cultural significance, where does that fit in?
I think that anybody who is going to make a proposal should probably have listened to this and hear that that is of significance to the council, but either way, if we got a proposal from 7-Eleven, we would have to bring that to you also. We don't have the authority as staff to reject a proposal like that. Now, we would go into closed session, and that's where I was saying that I think perhaps if we go down this path, we would probably go into closed session sooner rather than later to get some guidance from you on parameters, although I have heard that one of the parameters is you are focused on a cultural facility.
Is there a way to put that in?
With preference given to offers of
Cultural
preference given to proposals that offer cultural significance. Can we put that in the motion?
Sure. I think it's really important for us to think about the community. I mean, it's one thing, right, like I have the things that I'm interested in. You know, we all have different things that we care about and that our circles of friends and peers care about. But
I'm sorry, Steve, can you hit your microphone? We're having some feedback issues. Sorry.
That may or may not be aligned with what the neighbors or the residents or the community is interested in. I appreciate the concern about the time. I appreciate the sense of responsibility towards the past, you know, people that we were talking to about, you know, about this property. But by trying to keep them going on a parallel path is really, I think, it's not good for the community process of the Master Parks Plan, because you're really telling them, oh no, we're just going to kind of do what we want, even though we're having this community process and we're seriously considering getting rid of this property.
So Elizabeth, could you give us a shot at the motion again?
So I think Mayor Hammond's motion was to, hold on, let me get it up again.
Yeah, receive and file.
Receive and file this report and to direct staff to continue along the path of it might be helpful to break it into two motions. So Mayor Hammond, you might want to think about this. But the first portion is direct staff or receive and file the report and direct staff to delay consideration of a future sale of the property while the Parks Master Plan is being completed.
Correct. That's the first motion. Let's just do it that way.
That'd be helpful.
Okay, so that's motion and a second. Discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question then.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
Aye.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right.
And then the second part of the motion would be then to direct staff to entertain from whomever proposals that would elevate itself to a cultural location. In other words, trying to get the theme of that area for some sort of a venue or some sort of a vision to use for a project.
So proposals that contain cultural significance.
Exactly. That would be.
With preference given.
Preference given, yeah. Or just have.
Well, that's something, again, yeah.
Make them all that way.
Yeah, let's make that motion and then I'll make that motion. So
let's.
Look for a second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second by Bausch. So the point is, discussion there is to entertain proposals. And once that gets disseminated by staff is going to come back and give it to council in closed session to discuss. Whether we decide that is cultural or not, that's the point when you can reject it at that point. Right, that's the point.
So let's Elizabeth hear the motion, please, before we.
All right. So I think the second motion is to direct staff to accept proposals for disposition of the land that involve potential projects of cultural significance and return to council if any such projects are received.
Correct.
I will note for you that we will likely come back into closed session prior so that we can get some guidance in case we do get any of these amorphous proposals.
Yeah. It's a property related, so that's how
We're going to scare everybody away, so I don't think I have to worry about that.
Okay, so motion by Hammond, second by Bausch. Further discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question.
Mayor Hammond?
Aye.
Councilmember Bausch?
Aye.
Councilmember Beal?
No.
Councilmember Gregory?
Aye. Yes.
Councilmember Strong?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully we can make a deal, so.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, manager's report. Mr. Gouad.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be very brief tonight. Just a couple of upcoming events that may be on the upcoming event slide, but I wanted to lift out and highlight. One, this upcoming Saturday, the fire department will be holding a community meeting regarding their upcoming 5-year strategic plan. So that's this Saturday, the 22nd, from 10 a.m. to noon. It is open to the general public. It'll be held at the Public Safety Center in the Emergency Operations Center. So we encourage the public to come and participate and help shape the vision for the next 5 years related to public safety and specifically the fire department. We have a coffee with the city coming up on August 28th. This is on water, so a timely topic. And Christopher Aleckl and his team will be presenting that. Just as FYI, we'll have several staff members out of the office tomorrow participating in emergency operations training in San Luis Obispo in preparation, in general preparation, but also in preparation for the predicted El Nino season. And then Mayor, I'll defer to you, but several of us were able to attend a meeting last week with NASA. It was a very fun and enlightening meeting, but Mayor, I'll defer to you on the details there. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Council business and committee reports. Who'd like to start? Councilmember Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of things. As a gentle reminder, Bearcats football starts this Friday. Make sure to check out your home game schedule. It'll be a lot of fun. Uptown Park has an event with the mobile rec on wheels or whatever at Uptown Park. And just a little remembrance for Mayor Martin, who passed away. And did you have it?
I've got that. We're going to do that in a minute.
Okay, who
Yeah.
reminded us to put aside our differences and called on us to care for each other. That's all from me. Thank you for letting me be of service.
All right, thank you, Chris. On the other end, Chris Bausch.
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick things. Senior advisory, we had a very, very lively meeting. Parks and Recreation, Library Board of Trustees, the ribbon cutting at the new training center. Thank you, Chief Stornetta. Amazing how many people showed up to that from all the fire trucks. And we had a new fire truck, new ladder truck. That was fun to go take a look at. Attended the 221 for Cannabis this morning. And then something just for a future agenda request that came up from a couple different people. But I'm going to read this so I don't mess it up. POW and MIA flags, as well as Wounded Warrior flags, be flown at either end of our Veterans Memorial Bridge. Our national POW MIA Recognition Day will be observed next month on September 26th, just to let the families of those who haven't come home know that their service is still being honored, is still remembered, and is still appreciated. It would be fitting to maybe try this on for size, and if it works, to see if we can't make something permanent out of it. I'm hoping my fellow council members will join me in directing staff to bring something back to the agenda on September 1st or 15th. And so hopefully.
So do we have consensus on that from Mr. Bausch?
I've requested the same thing, so yes, I'd like to see it come back.
I would agree. So staff, can you get that handled for the September 1st meeting? Yeah.
Yes, happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, two of the advisory bodies that some of us serve on are looking for volunteers to fill two vacancies. Parks and Recreation Advisory Body Committee that meets on the second Monday of each month at 4 p.m. to consider matters pertaining to parks, trails, and recreation and sports. They need a volunteer, and the Senior Advisory Committee is looking for someone to join us on the second Monday of each month at 1:30 p.m. at the Senior Center to consider matters pertaining to seniors. That's my report.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Mr. Strong.
Well, my reports are kind of unusual. I didn't make any of my meetings because I also have meetings for transportation that are all over the state. And I had conflicts for every one of my local meetings. Mr. Bausch, Councilman Bausch, thankfully covered me on those.
My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you for the reminder. I almost didn't make it, so thank you.
Yeah. And also, I have a request on that former Councilman Lee Swanson passed away on August 4th, and we should remember him also in our adjournment.
All right, very good.
Yes.
He was in Texas, by the way, and on hospice at the time.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. Pro Tem Gregory.
Yes. I'd like to thank staff for our cannabis preparation training for tonight. It was very valuable and very rewarding because it helped me understand a very complicated issue, so it was well done by staff. Thank you. Attended the Senior Advisory Center meeting with Mr. Bausch, and lots of people were attending, and it's a really good meeting, but I think one of the things that I got out of the meeting is everybody was listening, and I really like Lauren. I can't remember Lauren's last name, but boy, he's a really nice guy. He's from Capslow. He happens to run Prado Road. He's just was very kind and talked to everybody and tried to everybody feel on board with what was going on. It's an amazing process, and I think it'll really help our senior center because I think they're going to dial it in really well and get some help. And part of that process will be us figuring out ways to get more money into the endowment. I think he even mentioned that in his talk, so that'll be good. I want to thank you, the Chief Starnetta, and your buddy sitting next to you back there, Damien, for the party you guys had with the ribbon cutting. And I want to say I've never, I said it that day, 10 years ago, I can't believe where we are today with fire safety and police department safety. So much has happened. We didn't even have a design of a third fire station or a safety, and we didn't have full staff. We didn't have a squad vehicle. We didn't have any of this. And so they really come a long way, and congratulations to our staff, all of our staff members, and of course, Chief Starnetta and Randy Harris was there, and Chief Nord. It's remarkable speaking to everybody in blue. I think there was at least 200 firefighters and police officers there, and it was just wonderful. And then I really appreciate them handing me the Jaws of Life to cut the ribbon. And then Congressman Panetta beat me to the cut, but it was all good. So
With the cutters, a hydraulic cutter, yeah, that was pretty cool.
I don't know what that thing weighs,
Wasn't
but
that easy?
it wasn't easy.
Not the best tool for the job.
It's much easier and better than what we used to use, I guarantee that. And I think Jonathan can tell you, we used to use hoses and electric motors, all kinds of stuff to make those things
Yeah,
work.
my wife looked at the picture and goes, "What are you doing with that thing?" And we were standing all, I said, it was heavy.
Yeah, that was a great picture.
But it was really nice having there, and thank you everybody for providing such a great public service and safety for us. And that's my comment for today. Thank you.
All right. For me, thank you very much, Pro Tem Gregory, for being there for me. I was up in the Sierras and couldn't get back. I appreciate that for the ribbon cutting for that training center. It's going to be a great tool. And again, we thank again the police and fire for our plaque. That's going to be in our council office for a long time to come. Appreciate that. For me, I went to Wake Up Paso, the chamber. That was a cool thing that we did. Actually, they want me to speak on the next one in November, or two months out, I think. And I'm going to do that. I think that's, after, that'll be almost to the end of my term, 20 years looking back on what's happened here in Paso Robles. I think that'd be kind of a cool little talk to do. We also did the July 4th, staff did the appreciation dinner that Angelica and Linda put together. That was beautiful. I mean, a great thank you to all of our staff here at Centennial that afternoon. That was fun. Cuesta College ribbon cutting, and went to that. They have a new industrial center, educational center that they ribbon cutted, and a lot of good folks there. Then, of course, that Chris Huot was talking about, we visited NASA last week. That was an amazing, amazing field trip up there. It was, for what they do there, and I wish Paul was here too, to the point where we could talk further, but they have so many cool things there. Flight simulators, largest flight simulator in the world, largest wind tunnel in the world. They are sitting there, we're watching them maneuver satellites out in space, through a control room. They showed us their new rover that's going to happen for the moon, and they're going to be coring. There's so much stuff there, but they actually reached out to us. They're seeing what we're doing here with our spaceport efforts. They want to be a part of it, so they invited us up, so we certainly, shook their hand and said, yeah, we'll come up. And I think, again, it's going to be a great partnership in the future for us to become aligned with NASA, and they certainly want to be part of Paso Robles too. So that was great. Upcoming, one other thing, I'm going to be gone. Actually, tomorrow I'm leaving to go to Belgium to try to find my dad's wallet from World War II. They found it, and they are going to try to twist their arm to let it come home to Paso Robles, and actually my mom and Mompoke. So I'm going to be missing the next meeting, and Pro Tem Gregory will be running that for me, please, and I appreciate that. Looking forward. Upcoming events. We have Supplemental Tax Oversight Committee meeting August 19th at 5:30. Coffee with a Cop Dispatcher. That's going to be August 20th, and that's going to be 7 a.m. at Black Sheep Sourdough. A different venue this time. Development Review Committee, August 24th, 4 p.m. Planning Commission here in this room, August 25th at 6:30. Paso Robles Municipal Airport Commission meeting, August 27th at 6:30. Then we have Coffee with the City. Water resources is going to be the topic. Supply, quantity, and quality. August 28th, and that's going to be at the Cal Coast Beer Patina Room, 7:30. And then we have, again, Development Review Committee, August 31st at 4 p.m. And then the next City Council meeting is going to be here in the North Room, Centennial Park, September 1st, 2026 at 6 p.m. And I think we alluded to this, our dear friend, colleague, Mayor Martin passed away 3 years ago, I think it was last week. And it isn't a day that, a meeting that I go to that I don't think of him. So it doesn't seem like 3 years already, but it has been. So same way with council member Lee Swanson. He spent many years on this council as well. So again, I'd like to make a motion then to we adjourn in the memory of Mayor Martin and Lee Swanson.
Second.
Okay, motion by Hammond, second by Pro Tem Gregory. All in favor? Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.